Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, September 1st, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Luke, if you'd call the roll.
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here.
Darrell Williams.
Here.
Michael Neese.
Here.
Amy Nichols.
Here.
Lige Haney.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Janice Varney. Tim Stegman.
Here. Next up, we'll have approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda is approved. Next up, we'll have the meeting minutes of August 4th up for approval.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August the 4th.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to approve the August 4th regular meeting minutes. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. One note, we did receive 4 communications since our last meeting. The first was from Dan Agnello, Trailside Phase 2 Amendment comments. Nancy Nat, proposed site plan submittal ordinance amendments. Elaine Herbert, recent ZBA applications. And Mike Campbell, proposed height ordinance amendments. So now we'll move on to the unfinished business. Item 5, New Everett Park Phase 2 PUD amendment, public hearing and site plan review.
Yes, thank you. We're ready.
Okay.
This is, Matt O'Connor is back tonight with the clarifications that this group asked for regarding an amendment to the Trailside at Everett Park PUD project, specifically Phase 2, which has now been clarified for you all and will include 12 two-family dwelling units on the northeast quadrant of the site, fronting Indiana Avenue in Elkinburg. So Matt is here tonight, if you'd like to hear from Matt a little bit, and we do need to have the public hearing.
Right. Do you want to hear from Matt first or go right to just open the public hearing?
See what he has to say.
Okay. Matt, if you'll come up to the podium.
Matt O'Connor, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Yeah, appreciate you taking time to meet with us. Yeah, so heard the comments over the last few hearings and had a lot of conversations with Kelly and Brad and Griffin and other staff, and so we feel like we've put together a comprehensive application and clarified any confusion that there may have been, but happy to answer any questions you might have this evening.
Okay, very good. Why don't you stay right up here? We have some questions. I think, Larry, why don't you go first?
Okay. A question about the spacing between the buildings and the size of the footprint. Is that standard for all of the buildings? What are your plans there, or does it vary?
Nope, those will be all pretty much identical units, units 1 to 24.
Okay. And what's the dimension between the buildings?
I believe we stated that in the application, but I believe we've got 25-yard front setback, and I believe on page that chart, if you want to go to that, potentially.
You can go to the chart, yes.
I believe we outlined it in the.
To see if it's on this page.
Chart.
Okay.
I believe it's
Just a
15
minute
feet,
to
but I don't
find the chart.
want to speak out of turn.
Page 16, I think.
But yeah, the engineer did lay it out on a chart.
Yeah.
Sorry, the chart is,
Page 16, isn't it?
I think it's page 16, Kelly.
yep, just, I don't have my mouse tonight, so sorry it takes. This chart?
No, the
This, this is part of the application.
I mean,
I think it's on page 16 of the agenda.
Well, we need that on the plans.
Okay.
That's
We
required
can-
to be on the plans.
We can certainly do that.
Okay.
Well, drawing C205 shows a 10-foot minimum between buildings. It just shows it for, well, and then it shows 12-foot minimum on between the 1-2 building and the 3-4 building. Between 17, 18, 19, 20, it shows 10 foot.
Yes, that's on page 20 of the agenda. Requesting a structure separation of 10 feet between buildings.
This, with the text?
Bottom remark.
Well, we can certainly
Oh,
show
the
it on
remark,
the
yeah.
plan.
All right, all right.
Yeah, it is on, that distance is shown here in the corner. It's just small.
Oh, yeah, there it is, 15 foot on that.
Do you see here?
Okay.
I'm sorry, 10.
All right.
There's the 10,
Yeah, between 18 and 19 there.
and then 12 on this side.
Correct.
My next question had to do with the landscaping. Your master deed will talk about maintenance of the landscaping in the common areas. How about the areas around the buildings? Are those going to be up to the individual owners, or will that be part of the common area?
As we construct the home and sell it, there will be landscaping similar to what's in Phase 1. And then we will, part of the condo association, the dues will maintain that landscaping.
Okay.
So it'll be very consistent with.
Okay, so that will be a part of the master deed then?
Correct, yes. Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's, I guess those are the questions that I had. George, you got a lot of notes too, so I'm going to yield the rest of my time to George.
George?
So first, I'm looking at page 7 of the staff report. It talks about any subsequent development on this is on the top of page 7. Any subsequent development of this parcel shown on phase 3, even if already approved, will require another PUD amendment. So is that just because we've already kind of approved part of phase 3?
Yeah, I don't want to speak, I don't want to speak for staff, but I mean, this plan's obviously evolved over the last year. So, we're here today to say, Phase 2 are the lots that now front Elkenberg in Indiana. Totally acknowledge that when we come back for Phase 3 and 4, that'll be a new application, and it'll be similar to this amount of detail.
Okay, so even though it just says phase 3, any future phases will have to get a PUD.
Yeah, yep.
Got it.
I believe the original proposal was back in 06 was 8 amendments, or 8 phases, so.
Page 10 of the packet, item J, I think, JV, I guess, talks about identification of existing trees, and it talks about only one existing tree located in the public right-of-way at the intersection of Indiana Street and Elkenberg Street. Is that, I didn't go look at it, is there a tree there that's going to have to get removed?
Yeah,
More than likely?
that'll get
Okay.
removed.
Okay, page 11, item L at the top there, it talks about driveways, and this is partly for staff also. So we talk about the minimum width of driveways, but there's also a maximum width for, it says no two-family driveways shall have a width of no more than 21 feet, with a curb cut no more than 24 feet. It looks like you've got 24 feet width of your driveway. Is that something that you can work with staff to get that to meet the ordinance, you think? Am I interpreting that right, or?
You know, I'm not an engineer. I'm just going off of what our engineers interpreted, but based on our conversations with staff, we thought that was appropriate, but I don't know if, I guess you asked both of us, so that's my comment. I'll let Kelly answer.
Yes, that section of the zoning ordinance that you pointed out does ask for 21-foot maximum width of the driveways. So if we are treating these as one driveway, I think we do need to reduce that to 21 feet. They can be 24 at the curb, but we should probably reduce those to 21 feet for the width of the driveway.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we can certainly talk to our engineering staff about that. I don't see that being a overwhelming change.
Also on page 11, it talks about the lots being 20 foot by 50 foot. And I didn't really see that dimension anywhere on the drawings or anything, or anywhere in the submittal. Did staff just get that number just by using a ruler on the drawing to kind of calculate that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can certainly add that, but yeah, I mean, we provided a scaled drawing, so I'm guessing that's how you concluded that.
So page 17 of the staff report talks about density, and it says the planning commission should discuss this change in density. So it looks like, I mean, you don't have the rest of the phases set in stone yet, but there were 198 units. I know some have been converted from duplexes to or multifamily to single family. That's going to reduce the number. But it says the initial phase 2 included 11 additional detached single family units and 18 attached, 3 more units than initially envisioned for the same area in the 2006 plan. So I just want to make sure that from a density standpoint, we're not going to get ourselves into trouble. Have you either talked to staff at all about, and when this comment was made by the staff, is it something that staff is concerned about, or they just want us to bring it up to talk about it?
Brad, do you want to jump in there?
Well, as you know, you said it was approved for 198 total units in the original PUD. Each phase, as they're evolving and as it initially was planned, because the overall PUD was approved for 198 units, but only phase 1 was ever fully approved for 20 units. The developer at the time stated that he would come back for each additional phase and that the market could change those unit structures. But we do know that 198 is the maximum density that is permitted for the entire PUD. So all, 16 acres? 16 acres out there. The comment that I made about the additional 3 units was, as you remember last year when we did the original phase 2, there was a portion that was down along St. Joseph Street, and there was that portion that was along the trail up near where we're at now. There was initially planned to have a through street across along where that retention pond or detention pond was to be located on the south side down near, Aylworth down there. And there were 3 units that were added at that location, and the connection was going to be made to a alley road that was behind those buildings. So those 3 were added to it. Overall, we will have to watch the overall density of it. This plan, because it initially contained 2-family and 3-family unit developments in this corner, he's been sticking fairly consistent with the typologies that were originally approved, even though the layout has slightly changed somewhat. So that hasn't really worried me too much as long as he's sticking towards the overall general scope of what was initially approved 15 years ago. As we move forward, we'll have to keep an eye on to see what he's proposing. I know that the plan that you did submit has some other shapes and sizes of buildings and things like that in there. So, as we work forward with his group, that's what we'll have to keep in mind is the original density level, and then each little chunk that he's working on to make sure that it flows accurately and that it's trying to match what initially was there.
If my calculations are correct, this phase 2 that we're looking at right now is twice the density that the overall plan was set for. So we're not looking at heading right now toward any problem, but
Exactly. It's going to be further on is that the original plan had a larger mixture of, 30 or 40, 35 or 40 single-family homes in total on the overall lot. Many duplexes, many triplexes. I even think there was a multifamily building that was on there, like an apartment building, that was proposed as like a 3-story, building with dozens of units in it. So, that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on, like you said, because this one's been whittled down very thin. That's why the density has increased for this particular phase. So it's difficult for me to judge it because I'm trying to judge it for the amount of square footage that we have on this particular phase, for how many units he's actually placing on it. When you try and compare it to phase 1, which is all singles on a much larger piece of land, it's a lot less dense than what we have on this one.
I'm good. Thank you, Matt.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just real quick. This definitely, I think, continuous to that mixed use of housing, which is really nice to see. We've got the really large ones you're doing now, and then, most of phase 2 houses, and now these duplexes are great. And it looks like you confirmed that this is going to change the approved phase 2 to a new phase 2 with at least showing us where you think some of the other phases were, which I think was one of the other goals previously. So you're kind of telegraphing down the road what you may want to see.
No, and I appreciate the comments
So
last time.
not approved, but here's the future plan ideas, which is good to see. And then with these, I just want to continue because I think we had wondered, you're allowed to sell these units not as necessarily as a duplex. You can do like one side and another side.
Yeah, unit A and B.
See that,
Unit
once
1A
again,
and one-
that I think hit some of the goals we were looking at,
Yeah.
this property having multiple uses. The interesting thing is, these are like site condos, so some of that flexibility and density, people may think, well, those houses are kind of close together, but it's a PUD condo type building envelopes. You're providing some density because it's a different kind of product. So this, I think, meets with some of the things we're looking for, and some of the other problems or questions I wanted other members have looked at. So that's it.
I had lots of highlighting in the packet, but when I got to the recommendations from the staff, they pretty much encompass everything that's highlighted throughout the narrative. I have to say, it's very difficult to follow the narrative from 2006 to today. It jumps around to implying that what 2006 said is cast in stone to we make the assumption or typically, and it's difficult to follow the logic. But I am pleased, after reading through it all, what I see on page 25 of our packet and the recommendations. I can't find a single one of my concerns that isn't touched by those recommendations, so that's a good job there.
Anybody down here?
No, I was just going to say, I agree with Mike. In fact, I brought it up with Kelly, I'm having a really hard time following this. I feel like I need a whiteboard with 2006 and 2022 and where we at. But if no one else has any concerns, this seems to be just fine.
Well, let's reference page 25 then.
Thank you.
For example, number 3.
Right.
Separation been defined?
Yeah. That was the question I asked, and they
Right.
pointed out what sheet it was on.
Okay.
But it will be on the site sheet here.
Well, do you want to put it in the recommendation that
Yeah, well,
we say 12? Is that what we
I
were
would-
looking at?
I would leave it in the recommendation, yes.
Yeah. But I think they're looking for that number in the recommendation. So when we come to 3, we want to put the word, if it's 10 and 12, we're showing we're really looking at least 12, right? Or if that's what we agree to. I don't see that. In number 3,
Right.
Yeah. It has to be put on the plan sheet. That's what number 3 says, and
That's correct.
that satisfies me.
okay.
Actually, the way I read, the troublesome thing, the way I read number 3, unless I'm not reading correctly, is it's more than just placing it on the plan. We have to actually approve it as a separate measure.
That's exactly what I want you to do, because this is a site condo, and overall, as a PUD, you have to think of this as, I mean, it may be 20 years down the road, but this is, you know, Elkinburg to Aylworth to Indiana to St. Joseph as an entire development. And what's happening is, it's almost like in each of these units are Swiss cheese holes in this parcel. And unfortunately, in our zoning ordinance, we don't have anything that says we have to have a minimum distance between, separation between buildings. Some zoning ordinances and some municipalities do have that defined in like their PUD ordinances, that you have to have a minimum of 10 feet or 12 feet or 15 feet or something like that in between. So it's easy for us to do that, but we don't have anything in our ordinance that does define that. So the question that I raised when I put number 3 in was, what's defined on the plan is written down there as 12 feet for the homes that are along, or the buildings that are along Elkinburg Street, and 10 feet for those along Indiana Street. If you're comfortable with that, please make a motion along with it and state that in there, that that's what the separation should be.
So in the application on page, which is on page 35 of our packet, it talks about proposed Phase 2 deviations, and it says side yard minimum 12 feet, and then it says proposed requirement 10 feet building to building separation. Is that not acceptable, I guess, that we have that in the application, that they're going to do a minimum 10 feet between buildings?
What he's saying is we don't have a defined distance.
I would prefer, if it's 12 on one and 10 on the other, than just to state you are permitted 10 on one and 12 on the other, you know, between drip lines of those buildings, and that's it.
Makes sense. Okay. Do you feel number 4 has been adequately met?
Yeah, with the words.
My concern on number 4, and I guess I'm rereading it now, as I read through, it sounded like it was a requirement for the landscape plan to be completed. And as near as I can see, that's not done. I have to add, you know what? When I was reading through this, what I looked at page 25 was what I would hope we would see, and that is a checklist so that Matt knows what needs to be taken care of once and for all, and we can move this thing ahead. And the 10 points on that page appeared to be a pretty good checklist. So I didn't know, Tim, whether 4 included again, it seems to me that requires more action than, just calling it out. It says, again, it has to be reviewed before approval. I'm assuming that's reviewed by the zoning administrator, not the planning commission?
It could go either way, it depends what you stipulate. So the question Larry had asked was about the maintenance, and we're informed there's gonna be an association for the maintenance part.
And that will be covered in the master deed.
Mm-hmm. We move on to the next one, or any more comments for 4? Next one was off-street parking. So balanced off-street parking plan, mandate a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces provided for all duplex unit, no larger than 3 bedroom.
So Brad, then, are you looking here that we should have a condition that everything's got to be or a maximum of 3 bedrooms?
Well, I think that's what the applicant has proposed, and as long as he sticks with it, that's fine. The reason I threw that kind of little tweak at the end is it's the standard that all the rest of the residents has to meet in the city. So if it's greater than 3 bedrooms, they would have to supply additional parking.
Would the additional parking then, would that be another PUD amendment because it affects the parking?
Good question. Yeah. Again, when I wrote that, I know that they did propose 3-bedroom units there, so that was something that it was the standard of what we do across the entire. They could always ask for a waiver for it, but because he was proposing the 3-unit, or 3-bedroom units, he's satisfied his parking requirement for the the moment. But ultimately, what this would do is, prevent a 6-bedroom house getting stuck on there. I don't know how he would do it with the size of the home that he's building, but, if that ever came into effect, then he would have to put in 5 parking spaces for it.
But there's nothing in the plan right now that says how many bedrooms each.
Correct. No floor plans have been set, just that the application is submitted for 3-bedroom units.
And I thought, yeah, according to our current parking plan and parking requirements, that couldn't go beyond that because there's just not parking there. Yeah.
That's right.
What was the length of the driveways?
I believe they were 26 feet 4 inches long from the inside edge of the sidewalk to the front of the garage.
That's enough for 4 cars? Is that right?
Well,
There's
he's going to
one in
have
the
2
garage.
single garages, so there'll be a garage for each unit. So
Okay.
there'll be one inside and then a parking space outside on the driveway on each side.
All right. Well, those were the main ones from the recommendation I wanted us to review. Were there any of the other ones of the?
Yeah, I have
13?
two of them that I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
Number 1, I think that one is met. Plan sheet C-205 definitely shows the 25-foot setback. So I think that one is met. We don't have to consider that as a condition. And number 7 on the master deed, I think we should add in there landscaping into the master deed, landscaping if required of the unit owners.
Okay, was that it?
Yep.
Do we need anything for the driveway width to change that, or is that?
No, I think that's understood because the ordinance is a 24-foot apron. All right, if there's no further discussion on this part, let's do the public hearing.
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to open a public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing's open. Anybody like to speak to this item? And just as a reminder, anyone who speaks tonight, state your name, address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I'm a bit perplexed why you say there are no lot requirements, because although this is a condo, if you look at the definition of condo subdivisions, it says it will comply with the applicable site development standards as part of the PUD unless waived, and the PUD is in RM1, and RM1 under section 502 has specific front, side, rear yard dimensions, lot areas, and lot area coverage of not to exceed 30%. And there is nothing in this submission that provides the lot coverage of this area. With regard to the 25-foot setback, rear setback, it says there's 30 feet, but it's not denoted. But if you look at the plans, there's a 20-foot buffer that looks pretty close to the back of the patio. And so I don't quite understand how you fit 30 feet in there. And the side yard setbacks, actually, it says it's 15 on the south boundary, 0 on the west boundary. And I believe that really it needs to be between buildings. The way that the staff reads these statutes, ordinances, just really does not protect the safety, welfare, and the character of our communities by putting things so close together. And I do not believe that the 10-foot setback is being applied consistently, and I do believe it's inconsistent with the modification requested. Again, lot coverage has not been addressed, so that's an omission that makes the application incomplete. The height, I would like to ensure that the height is not manipulated with drain control, and that really it's 35 feet is 35 feet, so that the homes across from it on Indiana are not shadowed by taller buildings than we would anticipate, especially in light with how the buildings along Elkenberg became skyscrapers in light of the trees and the open space that was decimated to allow those 4 extra buildings to go up. The drawings just continue not to provide the setbacks and clarity that is required, it would seem, to ensure that there are no misunderstandings and that we are all on the same page. The lack of clarity allows the developer to benefit at the expense of residents whose neighborhood characteristics are forever changed with the uncontrolled development by not correctly, evenly, fairly applying the setback requirements that are clearly needed under RM1 and section 502 of our zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
A motion to close the public hearing on this item. Second.
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Any additional discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion? Take your time. Luke,
Take
are
your
you
time.
ready?
I'm sorry, I don't have yet the full reference I need on 3. We're talking about 10 feet and 12 feet. 10 feet is where, and
10,
12 feet
10
is
feet is on Indiana,
Indiana? Okay,
and 12 feet is on Elkenberg.
okay.
Want a pen?
No, I'll get it here. Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend to City Council approval of the proposed Phase 2 amendments for the new Everett Park PUD with the following conditions. Referencing page 25 of the staff report, item number 2 would be item number 1, dimensions and footings of the buildings must be updated and placed on the site plan. Number 2 in my motion would be separation between the buildings must be defined and must be 10 feet for buildings along Indiana and 12 feet for buildings along Elkenberg. Number 3, landscaping must be clearly defined, must be defined in the master deed, and must be maintained at a minimum of 10%. Number 5, off-street parking. Required 2 off-street parking spaces for all duplexes no larger than 3 bedrooms. Any proposed bedroom greater than 3 must include 1 additional parking space. Item number 5, conservation easements for open space. All open space be preserved in perpetuity with a conservation easement. Number 7, master deed. Master deeds shall be presented to the city, outlining the requirements for setbacks, number of units, legal description of open space to be recorded, description of the common elements, proposed use and occupancy restrictions, and landscaping, if required, for the individual condo unit owners. Number 8, before issuing any city permits, I'm sorry, that's number 7. Worded as number 8 on sheet 25, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 just being renumbered and as stated on the staff report.
Very good. Is there support?
I support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? Good job, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other discussion, Luke, we'll do a roll call if you're caught up.
Sleepa,
Yes.
Gruba,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Heinig,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Hanny,
Yes.
Stegman.
Yes. Okay. There you go, Matt. All right, unfinished business, item 6, Harbor Club PUD amendment, public hearing and site plan review. Kelly?
Yes. Tonight, we have a proposed amendment to the Harbor Club PUD. This is actually a modification of the recently approved PUD that removed 4 of the lots in order to add a pool and pool house. When Mr. Sinar submitted permit applications for building permits, we realized that there were some modifications to the previously approved plans regarding the pool house itself and the spa. And so staff were not able to approve those changes administratively, however minor they may be. And so we're here tonight to amend the PUD. And I think Mr. Sinar is here. There he is. And we need to have a public hearing as well.
Right. Is there anything you'd like to add, Scott? Okay. Any questions for staff? All right, let's open the public hearing then.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to open public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing's open. Anybody wish to speak on this item? No? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing's closed. Staff recommendations on page 42. You want to put that up on the screen, please? Does anybody wish to make a motion?
So these 7 conditions are pretty much what we had on, I think, the original placed on February 21st, 2021, or February 21st, 2022?
22.
22, okay. So 9, 2, 7, about 7 months ago. Has any of these 7 been worked on so far? As in the fencing, they've been working on the fencing at all?
Yes, there has been some clearing along Ravine Lane for installation of the fence. That work started late spring, early summer, and it has not been completed. The fence has not been installed to date. And I do think it might be advantageous for us to have a deadline for completion of the fence, because that's not something that was included as a part of the initial approval.
Is a developer here? Could we ask how
What
they're
would
doing
your
with that?
recommendation be, that the fence be completed is when the building's completed? Or prior to, or what's the thought?
Personally, my preference would be for, it's because of clearing, there has been so much clearing along the site. I think we need the fence installed sooner rather than later, because as the clearing continues, the opacity is being lost rather than maintained at 80%. And so I think the intent would be to have the fence installed before the building is completed.
Okay. Scott, maybe you want to come up a moment and tell us about what's going on right now.
Hello, good evening. So as Kelly said, yes, we are in the process of getting the clearing done. We are close to be completing that, and then we are going to start installing the fence. With respect to the opacity issue, and this has been an ongoing issue, and, the concern, it's kind of like what we said. When you clear the trees, you can see through. In this instance, the whole issue is the adjoining property owner, Mr. Ashen. This property that abuts the western property line is vacant land. It's wooded. Mr. Ashen lives on baseline, so unless he's pulling up a lawn chair in the empty 10 acres and sitting there looking, yes, you could see through, but there are other trees. But it is our intent to have the fencing completed this year, before, we're starting to get the final quotes to get the fence in, and the goal is to get it done, start very soon, and, be done well before the pool and bathhouse are completed.
When are you going to start construction on that?
We're waiting for the state of Michigan, Eagle, the pool permits, so we're hoping really soon. And we've got all the permits in for the bathhouse, which is a separate permit. So we have to get a pool permit from the state, and then the city of South Haven usually goes along with the pool permit. But separate and apart, the bathhouse is other than the state of Michigan looks at some of the requirements that, you need the bathroom, showers, and things like that. Those requirements are required. The state of Michigan doesn't really have authority over the pool. It's the city of South Haven. So I believe with respect to the pool permit's been in for over 2 months. I think we're just waiting to get this minor issue resolved, and then I believe that we're close. We haven't had any other negative comments that we're supposed to get the permit for the bathhouse. But from a construction staging standpoint, They go out and they excavate and start putting the pool in, and the bathhouse, which is slab on grade, doesn't start till the pool's kind of formed and in place.
Okay. So the, if we were to say, have the fence up before you begin the excavation of the pool, pool house and pool itself, you could probably do that, right?
Well, that would be problematic. I mean, just the timing, we've been in with the state for quite a while, and they have different people now running it, and they're, into some very nitty-gritty. There's been a series of backs and forths with, there's engineers, there's architects, there's all these people. So it would hold up the pool, and we really need to just get the preliminary excavation done so that you've got to form the pool and let it cure. So putting that off would potentially push the pool off another year, which would not be great. But I have no problems, committing that we'd have the fence done before the end of the year, which will be well before, major construction happens on the pool. Or, the bathhouse probably might not even start by then.
Could I back you up a little bit? What are the constraints against completing the fence now?
The constraints were, it's just labor and, and basically staffing. So we tried to get a bunch of quotes. It was nearly impossible. So
Don't you also have to have labor and staffing to begin excavation?
That's, the pool company is a complete separate. This is, pool company just does the pool. So we're nearly done on the clearing. So now we're ready to probably start very soon in the next few weeks putting the fence in.
Again, I'm not an engineer, I'm not in construction, but I can't imagine the relative difficulty of installing the fence as compared to beginning construction, excavation and construction of the pool would seem. I watch fences get built every week.
Well, the issue here is, we're actually in this western line, it's a very tight area. So what you have is you have the edge of the road, and then the land kind of sort of drops off, and there are literally trees, it's a few hundred, do you have the measurement? I mean, it's a few hundred, I mean, it is, a few hundred yards, I think, along the line. So getting in there to install the fence is going to have to be kind of piece by piece, where you come in, set a stake, and then, because I agree with you. Your observations are absolutely correct, that if we were just sitting on a piece of land in the middle of a yard, it would be easy, but it's an uneven area, and there's trees and roots and stuff all over the place. So the clearing, I mean, it's been going on for probably 2 months. Heavy-duty chainsaws on a weekly basis, just to get in there and clear it out. So your regular observation is normal, but, it's not easy, and it's a very long fence.
So, completing the fence, is that going to be prohibited if, in any way, your ability to work on the pool?
No, I mean, the fence is on the western side of Ravine Lane. The pool area is on the eastern side of Ravine Lane, south of, so, I mean, the fence really is, they're close to each other, but they're in separate areas, other than, construction staging issues of where, trucks would come in to start doing excavation. But the area where the pool is literally surrounded by roads on 3 sides, so it's a wide open area with, it's really easy to get into there. The fence is where the difficulty is, because it's uneven territory, uneven land, and, there are a lot of big trees and roots and branches hanging over. So it's been quite the project just to try to get everything removed.
So to piggyback on what the chairman was speaking of, what would be a more specific timeline that you would need to complete the fence?
We're saying we can get the fence in before winter. I mean, we're hoping to start real soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I think probably the caveat we could put on this is complete the fence by the end of '22 and prior to the pool house being completed.
And I was gonna,
Which leaves the pool part out.
and that's what I was going to suggest. If there's some kind of occupancy permit or something that's being issued to the pool house can't be, occupied until we have the fence up. So that gives till the end of the year, the pool can get rolling, and it really can't be used until the fence gets up. I think that might satisfy everybody.
Oh, and the pool's gonna need a fence too.
Well, the pool's going to need a fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a separate issue, but yes, that I remember.
We wouldn't have a problem with what you're suggesting.
Good, very good.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Remember, the chair can't make motions. Right?
No, I was going to do this for you. I would make a motion to approve the proposed PUB amendment to include the 7 items listed in the staff recommendation, page 42. And that item 7 state that the fence be completed by the end of 2022 and prior to the pool house being completed and issued a occupancy permit.
Very good. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? Luke will do a roll call.
Nichols,
Yes.
Hanny,
Yes.
Sleepa,
Yes.
Gruba,
Yes.
Heinig,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Stegman.
Yes. Okay. Next item yep, have a good night, Scott. Unfinished business, 7, site plan submittal requirements, zoning text amendments. Kelly?
Yes, this item is proposed changes to site plan submittal requirement. The Planning Commission reviewed some proposed text amendments, I believe, 2 meetings ago, and voted to schedule a public hearing for this evening regarding the text amendments. And if you'd like me to cover a brief summary of what those are, I can do that. or-
Absolutely.
Okay. In place of the current environmental impact statement requirement, instead, staff is proposing several items would be submitted to satisfy that similar requirement. So with respect to noise, development of 10 or more detached dwelling units would need to submit this StrayCat summary tool that's available online. Developers would need to submit a Phase 1 environmental assessment and a traffic impact analysis. And we need to have a public hearing tonight before recommending any additional approval.
One additional thing to add, after the staff report was released, I believe Friday of last week, city did receive additional comments from EnviroLogic, and I believe those were distributed to you through a supplement to the agenda that was posted online as well. So we do have 2 versions of the ordinance. The EnviroLogic's edits were not heavy; they were fairly minor issues.
Why don't you just give us a brief rundown on those?
Sure. So we do have a red line provided with the supplement that includes their edits. So on subsection, and a lot of the edits pertain to sections that actually weren't previously being amended. So just the previous site plan standards. We have a provision that talks about preventing hazardous substances from entering the soil. The EnviroLogic suggested that we add surface water or groundwater as well to that list. They've made a couple of updates just to state agencies, like they changed state police fire marshal to Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs in one part, corrected a citation or updated a citation in another part. And then I guess the most substantive changes are to section 1718, subsection 4. This is the assessment standard for essentially what the phase one, how the phase one is supposed to be prepared. They've suggested changing the language, a qualified environmental professional who is a holder of a current professional engineer's or geologist license. They've simplified that to is an environmental professional as defined by the American Society for Testing Materials. And then we previously required the phase one be no more than 6 months old. They've suggested adding that it also accurately represent current site conditions. So if for some reason we know of a change to the site that's occurred within the last 6 months, the city could require an update to the phase one, even if the phase one's less than 6 months old. And I believe that's it. So I may have skipped over something minor, but that's essentially a summary of the changes they've suggested.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any questions for staff? No.
I've got a couple questions.
Okay.
So on page 64, it talks about the, when you use that stray cat tool, and it says for 10 or more attached dwelling units. Now, in the intro, it talked about detached dwelling units. I'm assuming attached is the right term?
Yes, that's essentially for sound mitigation between walls, so attached is the correct term.
Okay. So where did 10 come from, I guess?
I know this provision was based on a provision from the City of Holland zoning ordinance that the zoning administrator found. I don't recall if it was 10 units or if that was an adjustment on the part of staff.
I don't believe we made any adjustments. I think that
I think it's just from the Holland ordinance, is my memory.
Because it would seem to me that, I mean, anytime you have, I mean, if the tool is really used for noise between units, I would say anytime you have 2 or more attached units, or is that just too much of a change?
I think if I were guessing as to the rationale, it would just be a matter of burden on the developer. But at the same time, my understanding is this is a free tool provided by HUD. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes.
So I don't think it's significantly costly to do that. If you'd like to make that change, we could do that.
And so, and in that same section, you talk about the reason for it, which I'm not so sure that it says to ensure building materials will sufficiently suppress external traffic noise. My understanding is that, I thought you said that tool is for noise transmission between units.
I believe it does both. I think it applies to just an assessment of the materials used in the walls, so it would cover your internal transmission between walls as well as the transmission between the exterior and interior.
So I would think just get rid of the reason why you're doing it, you're requiring it. I don't know if you need to necessarily state that it's for external traffic noise, because I'm not sure that adds anything. So also on page 65, it talks about submittal waiver requirements. And it says the zoning administrator or planning commission waive, and a person or body specifically authorized under this ordinance to waive a submittal requirement may do so upon determining that the applicable waiver criteria are satisfied. So is it possible to add another section on there just to ensure that anytime something is waived, it's documented in like a public record somewhere, like a staff report that is part of the agenda packet or something like that? So there's some kind of record on, we're not scratching our heads later on trying to figure out why something may or may not have gotten waived.
We can do that. I do think that most, if not all, of the specific provisions that allow for waivers require that, and the city council waiver would have to be done in a public meeting. So I think that's likely covered, but we can add, there's no harm in adding that language. Can you give me the citation so I can make a note?
Yeah, it's on page 65 of the agenda packet. It's under item
15.
1405.
Let's see,
1405.
1405, 1,
It should probably be 2.
Okay. Okay, yes, I'll add something there.
it's just before section 1718 starts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then section 1718, 1B, talks about, let's see, the site plan calls for construction of 3 or more dwelling units. So why was 3 selected for that?
Three triggers multifamily housing, whereas single-family and two-family dwelling units are permitted differently.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the state building code. If it's 3 or more units, it's a multifamily.
And then just a typo on 1718-2, where the very first row says phase 1, it doesn't have ESA after it. I believe it should have that. Every other place you have phase 1, it has ESA in, or phase 1, it has ESA also after it.
Okay.
Let's see. Back on page 62. So we've added, at the bottom of page 62, we've added 15 and 16, which basically says all developments shall be designed and constructed to reasonably protect residents. It seems like that is kind of very general terms, and 16 also, site plan shall be consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare. It seems like that's already covered in the general provisions section, 1701 and 1707. It seems like it's already covered there. It doesn't really seem like it's adding a lot here because it's so general.
Certainly would be tough to enforce.
So we're talking about subsection 16 of 1404.
1404, yep.
15 and 16.
So you're just talking about striking that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both 15 and 16.
Yeah, it's implied in the rest of them.
Do you have any more?
Nope, that's it.
Good list. Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, let's do the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to open a public hearing for the site plan submittal requirement zoning text amendments. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing's open. Anyone wish to speak?
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. Councilman Sleeper, thank you for the comments. Two things that we had discussed that were missed was actually striking from the waiver part is the autonomous ability of the zoning administrator or some unnamed person from being able to waive them. My concern is that we have a 77 Clinton all over again, where decisions are made behind doors, there's not a public record. I do not think a zoning administrator should be able to waive, and not an unnamed person should be able to waive. I think that this should rest solely in the hands of the Planning Commission during a public hearing and the City Council during a public hearing, and that comments need to be placed on the record. I'm dismayed that 15 and 16 are stricken. That is the whole essence of the purpose of the environmental impact statement with regard to neighborhoods. And I agree, you can't enforce them. And so it's poorly written. You are not at a stage that these should be sent to City Council. This is not doing what needs to be done to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our community. With regard to the attached detached, with the 10 or more, actually, I'll give you my copy. I got online. This goes right to something I've raised before, that if some other jurisdiction's ordinance is going to be used, it should be hyperlinked in the folder, in the material. There's no reason that it can't be, not in today's IT technology. And in fact, it actually defines different levels. It has single detached, single attached, 2 attached dwelling units, 3 or 4 attached dwelling units, 5 or more attached dwelling units. So actually, this does not mirror the Holland ordinance, and so I would recommend that you go back and look at the Holland ordinance. Now, maybe I didn't look close enough because there were actually 2 Holland ordinances with effective dates about 10 days apart in August of this year. So that we really understand what's going on, I would recommend that. And also, that doesn't take into account how attached dwelling units is defined in our own zoning ordinance. 1 family dwelling attached to 2 or more family dwellings. So that goes to the discussion before with regard to 3. But if attached dwelling units is 3 by default, then does 3 attached dwelling units mean 9? What does 3 dwelling units mean? And is it 3 attached dwelling units? Is it 3 detached dwelling units? I think clarification is needed. So I'm more than happy to turn these over. They are for your benefit. I can send you the link that I found. But I'm sorry, I appreciate a lot of work has gone into this, but I do not think that there has been enough looking at definitions, how the definitions actually affect the words chosen and the amendments chosen, and reliance on Holland, I think, is misplaced.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Okay, in lieu of, unless you have further staff comments, there's 2 choices. One is to make a motion to send this on to City Council. The other would be to request staff to do some more edits.
I guess I don't see any environmental impact statements coming through in the near future. I don't know if, Kelly, if you're aware of anything, but it might be better to take time just to make sure we get it right.
Okay. Does everyone else concur?
I do.
Yeah.
I was thinking more so on the line, now, after reading the information and hearing what staff has stated, I don't see why we could not present this to council in the way it is. But I could be the Lone Ranger out there.
Well, if you make a motion, you'll find out.
No.
I think we could pass that on to them, but we would have to do a little editing in our motion of the things that George has pointed out.
You have to do quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my concern with pushing it onto council right now, is the amount of editing we would have to put in the motion, which says to me that we need to take our time and make sure that the proper edits are done and discussion is had on the edits.
Well, do we think staff could get these edits for our next meeting, so, you know, we wouldn't necessarily have to spend this much time on this? Because I know we're getting some things off from our plate, but others are still going to come back, as this one would, again.
Mhm.
You can never read this document enough time.
I agree with George, and I think the sentiment is going that way, but for a little different reason. I'm more concerned about the underlying assumptions that are being made in what we have here. I love that we look at best practices. I'm not sure Holland was the right city to pick. And I'm a little concerned that it might have been the only one we looked at. So, I don't know. The sound thing, to me, is an issue. I don't quite understand exactly what we're going for there. Seems like that could be cleaned up a little bit.
I still think you should do a motion, but it'd be a motion to,
For the staff.
for staff.
That's fine.
So that way we have an official.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we refer agenda item number 7 back to staff for further editing and further review of the sound stray cat portion.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So that one will stay, that'll be the first one on next month's unfinished business. And that'll have to be republished, will it not?
Because you close the public hearing. Yeah. I think
Because
that
we
makes
closed
sense.
the public hearing. Yeah. So on the next one, we won't close the public hearing,
May have to wait till November.
just in case.
Give you time to work on it, if you know
That's
it's
true.
Because those notices
We
are
have
quite
until mid-month,
expensive.
right?
Mm-hmm.
next week.
I'll get it done.
We'll look at the deadlines.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. Item 8, building height zoning text amendments. Kelly?
Okay, so we also have proposed text amendments for building height. As you recall, earlier in the summer, it was brought to our attention that the story limitations were missing from the R1 and central business districts of our zoning ordinance. And you all were presented with some text proposing to eliminate these story references and also edit the section of the ordinance that defines building height and how we measure building height specifically. So we need to hold a public hearing tonight.
Right. Okay, are there any questions for staff? Not right now?
Did we get correspondence on this one as well?
We did.
I think Mr. Campbell.
Yes, Campbell. That's the one that was
Okay.
the fourth one.
Okay, you did them all at once, thank you.
Yeah. All right, if there's no discussion right now or questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move we open a public hearing on the proposed ordinance amendments on building heights.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to open a public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing's open for the building height zoning text amendments. Anybody wish to address the commission?
Mike Campbell, 216 Erie Street. Given that you have received my written comments, I won't read them as I was planning to. I will just speak to them, assuming that everyone's had a chance to look at them. I remain concerned about having the section 1732-2A, which was renumbered from 1732-1A, having to do with the not counting the first 12 inches of fill toward building height if fill is used. At the time, I mentioned that I thought it was an area where there could be abuse because builders may just fill up the up against the foundation by 12 inches, and then you can build a 36-foot house and still be in at the 35-foot level. At the time, I had suggested that instead of doing the final measurement from the foundation level, that instead you pick a point toward the edge of the lot where fill isn't going to be really an issue. And the chairman in his comments following suggested, well, how about a fixed marker that Public Works use, like manhole cover, curb, what have you. Seems to me that if you pick one of those spots, you're going to have much less contention about whether that building is the correct height or not. And I think subsection 3, which covers the need for a topographical survey for any building that has a plan that comes in at within 3 feet of the maximum height, is going to assist you with that, because to me that covers about 99.9 or 100% of the cases where you're even going to have an issue, because otherwise the only thing I can envision as a use case is if someone's trying to build a house in a bowl. So I guess the first question I have is, what is the use case for subsection A that's already not covered by C, particularly if you use a fixed point toward the edge of the lot or off the lot that the Public Works Department has recognized as an accurate elevation, and use one of those 2 points as a way to measure the final height of the building? If you agree with that kind of an application, then to me, unless there's a use case that can be brought forward, subsection A is totally unnecessary and can be stricken. My whole thought process around this was on the basis of the same reason we're doing the recodification, to try to make these zoning ordinances easier for the staff to apply as well as to enforce. And I think by having this in the zoning ordinance that we're going to potentially vote on, you're actually making an ambiguity that may have to get changed in the recodification. So why not address it now? The other question that I have is, in my written comments, is, besides the use case for A, is did that 2A get originally drafted by staff, or was that part of a model or best practice ordinance? And if so, from what municipality was it? Did they talk to the municipality to find out how they actually could enforce this, and was there ambiguity that they found as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I do not support the changes. I'm the one who had identified the error. And I do believe that the reason they made those changes back then is they wanted to preserve the character of our neighborhoods. And removing that story limitation does not. And the proposed changes that you are doing are causing ripple effects throughout the whole ordinance where there are complete disconnects. For example, Figure 2.3 requires significant updates because the terminology is wrong, and there's been nothing done to Figure 2.3. And I'm not even sure that all the definitions are accurately reflected. And what So there have been 9 homes that have had 3 stories allowed, and I obtained those through FOIA. And several of them are actually business STRs. So nothing against business STRs, but our zoning ordinances is to protect our neighborhoods and our town and our community. And we want our community to prosper, but at the same time, we say we want homes for our families making middle income, and families are getting smaller. Statistics are showing that. We do not need these larger homes. So what is the goal? Because if you allow larger homes, then you're pricing out the people that you say you want homes for. And so it's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and it doesn't look like there's a plan. The plan right now is correcting a significant typographical error that occurred back in 2015. Well, you just correct the error and go forward. And you then incorporate the changes as part of the recodification. You don't let it jump the line. And some of the changes, I agree that the 1-foot fill just is paving the way and the green light to allow for 36 feet homes, which is not characteristic. And I've been riding throughout all the neighborhoods on my bicycle, and we have ranches and we have 2 stories. We do not have large, tall homes, and that causes tunnel effects and it blocks out the sun. I think we need to look at what is our master plan, what kinds of homes do we want, what kinds of homes have we had, and what is the typical height? So back before, when this amendment was done, they looked at the typical height of Southwest Michigan. That net was cast too wide. What is in South Haven? What do we have? What do we want? And look at the master plan. And that's not being done. With regard to the 2A, I agree, remove that. With regard to 2B, where a grading plan has been approved, I think that needs to be clarified that how detailed was that grading plan and how detailed was the plan for which that grading plan was done? Does it have building heights? If it doesn't, then I don't think it should be allowed. I think there's more clarification required there. In sub C, I think that's just ripe for misuse. So we have our zoning ordinance 203 sub 3, which says when required, a zoning permit, when required, no land clearing, filling, or excavation shall be initiated. Now, staff and I have been going around exactly what excavation is. They have said it's landscaping, it's demolition, when you're going down 20 feet below where the demolition occurred. Minds can differ, but they shouldn't. And we're going right back to what is clear. And so actually sub 3 really shouldn't be needed. You shouldn't have excavation before a zoning permit is issued, and you shouldn't have a zoning permit issued before you have a grading plan. So you're putting the cart before the horse with C. It just isn't necessary, and it's ripe for misuse and abuse. And as I've said before, I don't think staff discretion should be allowed. I think these things need to be clear, and case in point, we have a huge list for excavation of criteria that's dated in 2015, although it just populated this past year when an issue came up. We need clear laws. We need laws that allow everyone to understand what's required, and we need laws that can be enforced. Most importantly, the latter, because that's not being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, for now, we'll leave this public hearing open. And we can have some further discussion, and obviously the choice again is if you want to make a motion to send the text as it is to City Council, then you'd have to close the public hearing first, or if you want some further amendments, we'll have to send that on to staff. But we'll leave the public hearing open in that case. Now, personally, I like the story definition of 2.5 with a maximum of 35 feet for those 2.5. If you go around our neighborhoods, you'll see a lot of single-story and story-and-a-half homes. The 3-story is out of character. So that's what you're really looking at with the stories taken out, and 35-foot is the cap, right? That's basically how that works. And I still have questions. I think there is a better way to set up a benchmark that's consistent for figuring out the actual height calculation. And I don't think we've hit it yet with what we have in this text. So those are my 2 thoughts.
Yeah, I concur, Mr. Chairman. The nice thing about this, a site visit for this was driving through the entire community or the entire city. And it's quite apparent that 3-story homes are counter to the tradition and the design of our existing our historical neighborhoods. I really don't understand why 3 stories are desired unless there's a whole lot of really big families moving to town. What benefit it is to us as a city to allow 3 stories. And the other issue is exactly what Tim said, and I appreciate the citizens' input here. It sounds to me, and again, I apologize for missing the last meeting, but it sounds to me when you were discussing this before that fill would be a rare situation only dependent upon whether it was needed to control drainage from the lot. And yet, I don't know how, without that reference point measurement, rather than somebody making the decision that it will affect drainage, it does give an awful lot of latitude to build an awful big house. And I just don't think that fits within the character of what the city of South Haven is.
It only gives a foot of latitude, doesn't it? Am I missing something here? We're only talking about a foot of latitude, aren't we? I mean,
Well, Larry, right. I don't know. I mean, I'll defer to what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I also drive down Elkenberg, and those homes are clearly not in character with the neighborhood. And I've not measured them. I don't know how to measure them, but they sure look taller than 35 feet.
I guess I'm concerned here that we may be, if they're taller than 35 feet, then we need to have something less than 35 feet in the ordinance. And I'm trying to look at what we're doing here with this measurement. And if we measure out in the street on a manhole cover, then the question comes up, suppose the city resurfaces that street and the manhole cover moves, or something else happens to move it. Or if you're taking it from the corners of the lot, you got to have somebody out there with a level to move it over to where the house is. To make that easy, let's do it at the house. And if some people are taking advantage of us by a foot, so be it, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think this is an opportunity too. If we're going to talk about looking at best practices of other communities, then maybe we should look at that for this as well. I, Larry, am of the opinion that you die a death from 1,000 small cuts. And a foot might only be a foot. But there's some awful big homes. I won't even call them homes. There's some also big housing structures being built. And I think they are altering the character of our neighborhoods.
The solution is numbers, not how we measure fill.
Anyone else?
I agree with what Larry is saying. We're only talking about a foot. On the other hand, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of keeping the ordinances simple And if you get rid of that 12-foot of fill, you simplify the ordinance, and then in some cases, someone's going to have to build a house that's 1 foot less than what they had maybe originally planned if they had to add additional land in for drainage. So, I mean, I could go either way, but from a standpoint of keep trying to simplify the ordinances, I think getting rid of that is probably, from a simplification standpoint, is
No, I
beneficial.
wasn't referring to simplifying the ordinance. I was referring to simplifying the measurements that
Yep, no, I
builders have
understand.
to do and
Understand.
staff has to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a clear definition of what's a half a story or what's a story? So if
That's when
that's
you
laid out.
don't know what happens in the end?
No, that's why. I need to know. Smarty. Okay.
I think that the definition of half-story was problematic, which is why it was eliminated in 2015.
See. So then it's 2-story or 3-story?
That's why I thought the 35 feet was going to be easy. I've ran and rode through the neighborhoods as well. I'm not sure, and I may be wrong, I don't think there's a 3-story building out there that's not being built as a short-term rental investment property, not as a home. And that also being said, I sometimes can't tell the difference between 2.5, because the half-story's got dormers and it's being used as game rooms, bedrooms. It really is a story. It just laid out differently. So that's why I thought the 35 is good to go. But, you know, they 3-story homes, they stick out. And when you drive through and see what we have, you know, I'd be happier to know those 3 stories were duplexes and fourplexes, and we allow that within our neighborhoods, because I think that's what a neighborhood is going towards. There would be more actual families in there. So I was just trying to make it easy for staff, but knowing, you know, what's considered a 2.5 and what's considered a 3 is pretty close. 35 feet is 35 feet.
I hear what everyone is saying, but at the end of it, I think it comes down to what we are going to decide to do and make it enforceable. And I think we need to make up our mind on what we want to do. You know, I think it's simple as that. Is it the 35 feet? Is it 2.5 stories? Is it 2 stories? And I don't know the answer to it individually, but I do know that I was comfortable as well, Clark, with the 35 feet because I thought the half story was confusing. And what that was and what it isn't, and how it can be defined easily and understood, and someone walking into that situation and trying to define it does speak to, now you have an individual being an individual arbiter. They make up their mind if that's a half story or if it's not a half story, and I worry about the ambiguity in that. But at the same time, I want to make it easier on staff to be able to enforce these ordinances in a clear and concise way. So I'm with George on simplifying it as much as possible so that can be done. And if someone doesn't like the ordinance, if they understand it, they'll be able to follow it. I would hate to put an ordinance in place that people are confused about and they're making mistakes because they don't understand what it is. So I'm with George on simplifying it in a way for it to be understood and easily followed.
I think with the 2.5 versus the 3, what you're looking at with the 2.5 is a larger roof surface. Both structures are capped out at 35 feet, right? But on the 3-story one, you have a roof, you have more wall vertically than you do with the 2.5, okay? So that's where the difference is. And you'll find on the 3-story, it'll be a much less pitched roof.
Mr. Chairman, you're our historian. Larry, you probably know this too, but what was the rationale in 2015 for actually adding the second-story requirement? Before that, we're going back from an ordinance that said no ordinance shall exceed 35 feet in height, and got it. But in 2015, they felt it necessary to put "and 2 stories in height." So what was their rationale for limiting homes in the city to 2 stories?
I don't know.
And what's changed?
All I can tell you is when I was on city council, we talked about the 2.5 and the cap at 35 feet. I think what happened was somewhere along the line that something wasn't amended officially in the order. It was officially done, but it didn't follow through with the actual editing. That's what I think.
I have no recollection of what happened back then or why. I think one other thing we need to remember, we need to be recommending what we think is the best thing for the city from this board, but the final decision is made by city council, and their wishes have already been made known.
And Larry, I couldn't agree more. And my problem in making the recommendation is trying to understand what benefit does it provide the city to allow 3-story homes as opposed to 2 stories that are in the ordinance now. If we're going to change the character of the neighborhoods by allowing another story on a home, what benefit will we receive as residents of the city for that change? What's the compelling case to change it?
Small lot sizes with more square footage of home.
And what does that do for the residents of the city?
That's the benefit.
Yeah, I don't.
Not for everybody, but for the property owner.
For the few that do that, or the people that can build a 3-story house. I balance that with what the master plan requires us to do, is to protect and preserve the historic character of the neighborhood. I would argue that that's abandoning that.
Well, unless there's further discussion on it, like I iterated a while ago, you had 2 choices with this one.
I think staff has some clear direction about if you were to send it back to staff, we have a few items that we know we could work on, but I think in terms of this story discussion, we would be looking for some clearer direction.
Well, and again, I recognize that I wasn't here for the discussion last month, and I fully respect that discussion on the stories, and I followed it. And, I'm perfectly fine to be the dissenting vote, for what the majority of the commission feels. It's just my personal opinion that an important point of protecting the character of our neighborhoods is to build homes that resemble residential homes and not small hotels.
Let me ask you this. Would it satisfy your concerns if we eliminate the 2.5 story, but also reduce the maximum height?
Sure.
Okay. That gives me a little clearer understanding of what you're looking at.
I would like to see us continue to build homes that are within the historical norm of the character of our neighborhoods, not to change things based on a potential different use for those structures. I won't call them homes because they're not homes. Those are housing structures. I have my doubt how many of them will actually, how many 3-story homes with 5 bedrooms and 1-car garages are going to actually be inhabited by a family. So I think this is, so often when we plan, we're doing linear thinking here, but this has more than linear thinking. This rolls on over into other things that we need to consider around the character of our neighborhoods.
I think we haven't had a discussion about the amount of nonconformity that we would create for existing homes that are currently over 2 stories. And not just the newer homes that are 3 stories, but the older homes that are more than 2 stories, that are not nonconforming now.
We've grandfathered a lot of other things in this town.
Presenting it as a discussion topic.
It's just a decision that the city needs to make, in my opinion.
Just, my opinion is I'm not as worried about the stories. I understand your point of view, Michael. I think I think a lot of other people just are more worried about the height of buildings. And so, and if it'll make it simpler, which I think it will, I'm good with just going with a height.
And like I said earlier, I think it's the perception when you get into the 2.5 versus the 3-story is the amount of square footage of the vertical wall surface is increased. The roof is like that on a 3-story, where on a 2, it's more peaked, so.
Yeah, I mean, it truly is a matter of opinion and aesthetics.
Right.
You know, to me, the more wall space you got, you're building a structure for function, not for design. I mean, we have some really pretty homes in town, and we have some awful big buildings built to maximize space. So, you know, I'm a traditionalist. I love the charm of South Haven. I'd love to see us protect that charm instead of filling it full of buildings that look like warehouses.
So at this point, if somebody wants to make a motion to send this to council, you'll first need to make a motion to close the public hearing. Or we'll leave the public hearing open and have staff work on the draft some more. So those are the options.
And council will still have the choice to do as they please with this, correct? As Larry often reminds me.
If we send it back to staff, could we ask council if they want 2.5 for 3-story homes?
This council member just wants to go with height.
Just wants to go height. And I understand the ease to that, because that's part of what I think we're trying to do with our ordinances.
And I think
Also-
from my, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I
Nope.
think from my recollection from the city council meeting, I think that's kind of the direction the city council was looking for. But again, I think the city council also looks to this body with our expertise and we give you guys a lot of credit for your deliberations in this area, so. Was that sufficiently wishy-washy?
Yeah, well, yeah.
That is.
You did
Nice
well.
job.
You know,
Just
because
like
I
a
know there's,
politician, Jerry. Pat us on the back.
there's a newer home, I think, that came before Planning Commission a few years ago on Brockway. And it was at about 36 feet, and we got it down to 35 feet. And the 3rd story is a full story, but it doesn't look like a 3-story building because of what they did, because I think it's a 2.5, but it's at 35 feet. And it has more character within the other houses that are there, but there's a fully functioning 3rd floor bedrooms as in, so I know, and I respect George. He is the one, he says, I'm just going to give my one, that's all I can do. but I just didn't know if it would be worth getting additional. I mean, I know they've given this to us to go forward with it, but at this point, I'm still not sure if there's really enough good agreement to give it to them yet.
Again, unfortunately, it's more complex than it appears to be. Because if we're going to protect the character of our neighborhood, the next question we've got to ask is which neighborhood? I mean, there was a new home being built on Ravinia, and we were scared to death what it was going to turn out to be. Fortunately, it's going to be a single-family residence, 2 stories. But there were rumors it was going to be a 3-story, and they're all ranch homes on Ravinia. You know, and that freaked us out. So in that neighborhood, my neighbors would be horribly upset if there was a 35-foot, 3-story building built. In other neighborhoods, they're probably more used to that. So, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we can create legislation that pinpoints this block, this block, this block. We have to have a general ordinance to be applied across the city. But my question is the balance point. So do we sway towards those that would like the bigger ones, or do we sway towards those that would like to keep them smaller, charming homes? And where's the balance point?
Well,
Or if we go with 30 feet.
Well,
we don't care the number of stories, but we just make it 30 instead of 35.
Put a number.
I would be for doing that, because keeping it simple and being able to help our staff be able to make definitive decisions on who's doing what right, I think is important. But also, I do think we probably need to send this back to staff. I mean, everything from what Larry was speaking about when it comes to where and how we measure, having a consistent piece on if we're going to do manhole covers or we're going to do the corner of the lots. I think that's something that we have to have figured out prior to sending to City Council. So I think we need to make sure that we have a good idea of that, because Larry made some very good points there where that foot too much or a foot less, could happen depending on how we actually word the ordinance. So I think we need to take some time to get that figured out, in my opinion.
I would also, as I sit here listening to this house and this house and this house on this road, remind everybody, we are not about zoning by house or zoning by street. We have to remember the bigger picture here. And I would like you guys to remember that, that we need one thing that we can apply over everywhere. And not just because your neighbors are scared or my neighbor's house is 3 stories. I just would like everybody to remember that.
Amy, I couldn't agree with you more. My issue is not that we do individual zoning for individual streets, but if we're going to set a bar for the entire city, do we set that at the bar that's based in the neighborhoods that people say nothing more than 2 stories in my neighborhood? Or are we setting the bar in other neighborhoods saying, hey, we're fine with 3 stories?
Then you're back to zoning by neighborhood, and that's not how we do it.
No. We don't have to zone by neighborhoods. We just have to pick which standard we want to apply to the whole city.
And part of our consideration should be the goals of the city, one of which is lower cost housing, and would allowing them to go up be moving toward that goal or away from it? I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, well, and again, I'm not an expert in that stuff. You are, Larry, but when I drive past those homes that are that big, 3 stories, I guarantee you they're not what I consider affordable housing. Unless a family of 20 moves in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, we need to wrap this up so we can keep going, though. Same 2 choices remain.
I would make a
Question for staff. Did City Council give us a deadline on when they would like us to wrap up this discussion?
That I can recall.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Go ahead.
Anyway, I'll make my last statement, and then I will go with the will of the body. I got no problem with it. I still need to understand from the city's point of view why in 2015 they called out specifically 2 stories, and what has changed in the tradition and character of our neighborhoods that now makes us want to think that 3 stories is the new norm. What's changed? Why did we say 2 stories in 2015? Why 7 years later are we all abandoning that standard?
I
To
don't
what
know if
benefit?
we'll get a sufficient answer to that. What I can tell you is that previously, there were many half-story definitions. And because of the confusion surrounding the half-story, the goal was to eliminate the half-story references. And so where in the R1 districts, there was allowed actually higher than 35 feet at the time, a maximum height of 40 feet and 2.5 stories, that was reduced to 35 feet and 2 stories, eliminating, the purpose being to eliminate the half-story references from all of the districts in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, and I get that, Kelly, and I appreciate that. I need to know what has changed since they made that decision to make it clearer and simpler, which we're trying to do too. What has changed that we now want to bump that up another story? What is the benefit to the city?
To be clear, the discussion at city council level didn't focus on wanting 3-story houses. It focused on not wanting to measure stories anymore and only simplify by measuring height. I do, and this council meeting was a while ago, but I do remember at least some council members talking about the possibility of lowering that foot, or having the planning commission, consider that as a potential option, lowering the foot threshold to achieve the same result or similar result to the 2 stories. So I think that's something city council was open to. But I didn't hear clamoring for 3-story homes in that meeting. I think it was more a simplification request as opposed to.
And we don't know if 2 stories versus 3 stories was contemplated in 2015, if that was even part of the conversation, or if it was simply a matter of simplicity to eliminate the half-story. We don't know.
To kind of help maybe move you guys along, would some staff research as to how big a 2-story home is, would that be helpful? If we're looking at moving, are you seriously contemplating moving the feet requirement down?
I think that would be helpful, yeah. I've been thinking here about what is the control that controls building a house now? Is it the 35 feet, or is it the number of stories? What's controlling us right now? And
depends how tall.
And I don't know if we can come up with that answer or
Well,
not, but your suggestion kind of gets to the same thought.
And one of the citizens did recommend that we ought to take a look at what the predominant height is in our existing neighborhoods. What is our baseline in South Haven currently? And how would this change it if it does change it?
Well, it kind of goes to the construction too. On your first floor, do you have a 8-foot wall, or do you have a 10 or 12-foot ceiling?
Sure.
All depends on the type of home you're building.
You were making a motion. Go ahead.
Yes.
I was just going to make a motion to have this proposed height ordinance go back to staff for additional work on top of providing some sample heights on 2, 2.5, and 3, just to look at.
Okay.
Second.
I didn't propose.
All right, it's been moved and supported, and just as a reminder, we still have the open public hearing out, so,
We don't need to renotice this one.
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. All right, it's almost 9 o'clock. Does the commission need a break, or do you want to keep going?
Yes, I need a break.
Okay. So make a motion to recess for 5 minutes?
So move.
I can't make the motion, somebody else has to.
I make a motion to recess for 5 minutes.
Supported.
It's been moved and supported to recess for 5 minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we'll come back at 9 o'clock.
Dang.
You be careful getting up with that knee.
I know it, that's why I have to stand up, but you were yelling in my ear.
George, I've determined that
have
one
a
of the
coach
differences
for
between you and I,
Dude.
I never did like new rigs at the
This one looks easy.
You guys will be on page 91.
And one.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. And we've got other business. First one's item 9, Piers End Cove Slip 13 boat hoist. It's a site plan review. And we're on page 91 of the agenda.
Super. Mr. John Pello has applied to install 2 permanent aluminum boat hoists at Piers End Cove in Slip 13. The primary hoist is a 16 by 16 a foot and will require 4 new pilings to be installed. And the second is a smaller hoist. It will be 8 feet by 4 feet and will require the installation of 1 new piling. And this request has been reviewed by the Harbor Commission. They recommended approval. The Eagle permits, the Army Corps permits, the association approval are all included with the packet.
Yes.
And I believe we have the applicant here.
Okay.
If there are any questions. And this is a site plan review, but it is not a PUD or special land use.
Right. Anybody have any questions for staff? No.
Cut and dry.
This is pretty easy.
Is there anybody that, from the audience, that wanted to talk about this item?
I don't think it's going to be an extra pier, though, maybe smaller, but I think it'll.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can stay there. It's all right. This is pretty standard.
Right.
Harbor Commission's already reviewed it, and I don't see anything out of the ordinary.
Especially if you go down there, they've all got hoists, so,
That's a tough area.
yeah,
Have to have them, yeah.
a lot of action from the. I would make a motion to approve the site plan for slip 13 at Piers End Cove.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Please come up to the podium if you do. It's already approved, so.
Be careful what you ask.
Now's a good time to run.
I'm John Pello. We live at 50 North Shore. We can start then tomorrow and put it in? Because they've been waiting with a crane in the river for 2 months.
Yes.
So is that,
Kelly, you'll have to talk to Kelly, okay? Give her a call.
Okay.
In the morning.
okay, I'll talk to you at 8. Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, have a good night. Okay, now we're on to page 93. No, not 93. I had, I gotta go a lot further.
138.
138. Yes, 138. Okay, other business. Number 10, Michigan Maritime Museum Parking Plan Review.
Yes. Back in 2019, the Planning Commission approved a special land use and site plan for the Michigan Maritime Museum expansion project. And as you are all aware, one of the conditions placed on the approval was that the Planning Commission would approve a written plan for parking and shuttle service prior to events being hosted at the site. The building is quite a bit larger than what was there before. The museum facility has been built, it's open to the public, and museum staff have submitted a parking plan for your review.
Okay.
And we do have representation from the museum here tonight.
A presentation?
We have representation.
Oh, I was like, presentation. Okay. Very good. All right, does anybody have any questions for staff, or would you like the applicant to come up to the podium for questions?
Yeah, I guess I have one for staff. And again, you have to excuse my naivety in this stuff, but looking on page 139, use of the vacant lot at 285 Black River Street, the fourth bullet point down says the property at 285 Black River is zoned R1B, single-family residential, and the surface is unimproved. Parking lots are not explicitly permitted as a principal use in residential districts. Parking lots as a principal use are permitted in industrial districts and by special land use in B2, B3, and B4. In addition, the article calls for the parking surfaces to be paved, improved, or some other type of paving surface, including pervious asphalt, bricks, or grass pavers. My question is one of governance. Is this supposing that the Planning Commission can rule that ordinance not applicable in this condition?
I don't think staff is recommending that, merely pointing out a potential concern with the plan that was submitted by the Maritime Museum.
Yeah, I'm asking a question that I really don't know about governance. Does the Planning Commission have the right to grant a plan that violates one of our city zoning ordinances?
If the planning commission determines that that use would be a parking lot use that's not allowed by the zoning ordinance, I think that would be a basis for rejecting this plan, or at least asking for modification of the plan. I don't believe an approval of this board could override that ordinance if the board determines that the ordinance prohibits that use as a parking lot.
Thank you.
I would assume the only way that property could be used was if they went for a change in zoning, right? And actually then constructed a parking lot?
My common sense, not my long experience in city
Yeah.
government, my common sense says that's exactly how I read it, Tim.
Yeah, okay.
And, they need to do something. If you're going to use that spot, I walk there all the time, and it's underwater most of the, most of the spring, and I'm concerned about using that as a parking lot without any, pervious asphalt, bricks, grass paper, something in there to shore that up.
I agree with Tim. The first step is it has to be rezoned something other than residential.
Right.
All right, I just considered that not part of the plan, so I took that out of the numbers, I guess, when I read this.
And what would you come up with for numbers?
Well, they've got great on-site parking for 50, so there's 100. And I think that their plan with senior services is a great plan. One of the things we had talked about before, there's parking for, 200 additional spaces out there? Whatever they can get out there with a shuttle service at senior services, multiply by 2, that would, to me, 250? 250 spaces out there? Oh. Whatever number of spaces, if it's 250, there's another 500 out there. And that would be a great parking plan. So, I look at the parking plan, and one of the things that they looked at and the success they had with shuttles, if they, had an agreement with senior services, then when they put together a large event, someone was going to have a wedding there, and they were going to have 400 guests. We had 50 on-site parking spaces, and, another 150 out there and a shuttle, and that's a parking plan.
Help me with your math, Clark. What I read, it says senior services has made 200 parking spaces available.
That would accommodate
down
it
it says,
to
however.
400,
That's 400 people. That's
plus the
correct.
100 on there on site.
But now we're taking away 150 vehicles from 285 Black River, so that takes away.
I'm not, no, hold on. I'm not including that in the plan. I would think a vehicle would accommodate 2 people.
Again, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, you take Black River out of it, it doesn't meet the number they need for the size of a conference they may be doing.
No, we just say that they can do up to 400.
400 guests.
Right, we could, it would be like,
got you.
it would be like the fire department saying you can have X number of guests. I mean, if they've got a parking plan and we look at those spaces and multiplied it by 2, that would be a great event. And that gives them a parking plan. They've got lots of spaces and that seems to work. The only one that we couldn't do is the one on Black
285.
River Street because it's not a parking lot.
But what, and farther down in the staff note, it did note that, however, without the Black River Street lot, the addition of this lot increases available parking up to 250, which is 500.
500, right.
Yeah. We don't
But
have to
that's
do the
nowhere
math
near,
then.
nowhere near the maximum occupancy of 800 guests.
Right.
So we would have to limit the size of their conferences to 500 max.
Yeah, because by ordinance, it'd be 800 divided by 2 is 400 parking spaces. That's the goal, if we're to follow the ordinance, right?
Thanks.
Okay.
And available street parking isn't part of an off-street plan.
Off-street can't be part of the
Yeah.
plan, right?
That reminds me, out of curiosity, and this would be a question for you, Clark, and I think both George,
I plead the fifth.
the on-street parking that the city has denoted for, it's public parking, but it was denoted as museum spaces, and I forget, there's like 20 or 30 of them, I believe, right next to Stanley Johnson. So you have the marina parking.
They note that.
Yeah, they've got that. I think.
No,
that-
I know that's in there. What I'm asking is, what was the reasoning behind that? And my curiosity is, if someone else in town with a building that had public parking in front of it said, I want it specifically for me, what was your reasoning for allowing it? That's what my question is. It's not whether it exists as it does right now, it's what was your reasoning? What's the precedent to allow that to happen?
I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, I was hoping the council peoples who voted in favor of it would be able to tell me, but.
Well, the museum had always been there, and the parking lot had been there long prior.
Not the parking lot to the north, I'm talking on the street, those street parking spaces.
Street parking spaces
Yes,
next to Stanley Johnson Park.
correct. They're in line with the marina.
Correct, yeah, and they've got the signs on
dedicated
them now.
parking. Yeah,
I don't remember that ever coming before city council.
If we're talking about the 15 spaces.
is it 15?
Yes,
Oh, I thought
that's
it was
part
like
of the
20
lease
or
agreement
30.
with the Maritime Museum.
Yeah, but what was the,
That I don't know. I don't know what the rationale was, but the agreement, which I looked at recently, provides for 15
Right.
spaces.
but I'm just saying, in the future, if somebody came in with any commercial property and said, there's these public spaces out front, but we need some more parking.
Well, that was my difficulty reading through the packet.
Yeah.
This isn't about the Maritime Museum to me. This is about parking policy.
But my question isn't really germane to tonight's topic, but
Right. Oh, no, it is.
I'm curious as to how that transpired and why that became part of the lease.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So you gentlemen were approaching, I assume you want to address the commission?
If we could, I'm Brian Boscraft. I'm a board member at the Michigan Maritime Museum.
Could you get that microphone a little bit higher there?
I'm also the chair of the Launching a Legacy campaign that raised over $8 million. I was chair of the building committee, and I was also chair of the planning team for the museum for about the last 10 years. Back in a long time ago, 6, 7 years ago, when the All Seasons Marine went up for, was thinking about being for sale, we hosted essentially a Harbor District stakeholders group meeting at the Maritime, or at the Yacht Club. We had great attendance. We had about 50 people there, including all the city staff and mayor and so forth. And one of the remarkable things that was stated by Greg Wykamp, who from Edgewater Resources, that also works for the city here, is the one of the parking issues that we have in the city of South Haven is all the empty spaces in the off-season. And that was really taken to heart by a lot of the business owners, how it's intensely busy during the summer, those few weeks. And then the rest of the season, there's empty spaces all over the place. Our Maritime Museum Board has been very sensitive to that fact, and we've wanted, our whole programming for this building has been to extend our season to be a year-round facility that can bring school buses in, can bring guests in from out of town, and can fill those parking spaces in the off-season. So our board was approached by the city some 4 or 5 years ago. They wanted to plop an event center on top of our museum. We just got into sort of a handshake agreement. All seasons were for sale, and the city bailed. Our board learned something at that time, and that was we don't want an event center plopped on top of our museum. We want to be a world-class museum with event capabilities. So right now, the spaces upstairs are empty. We don't have an exhibit space in it right now, but we certainly will at some point. So we may have exhibits in every room in that place. But right now, there are some event capabilities. So to the staff report, there's a list here that we have an occupancy of some 800. Well, our board doesn't want 800 people in our building or on our campus. I was in a board meeting, the last one, that said we don't want more than 200 people or 400 people. I mean, seriously, we are a museum first, and in the off-season, things might be a little bit different, you know, for events and so forth. So the numbers are somewhat, I mean, it's calling for theater seating for the upper room as one of your numbers. And then it counts the gallery space, which is essentially the lobby for 200 people. We're not going to have 200 different people standing in the lobby than the 400 people that are theater seating upstairs. You can't sort of count them both and say we're going to have 600 guests there. They're moving through the lobby to get up to the lecture series, or it's 230 people moving through the lobby, but you can't count, you know, in my opinion, 200 people for the lobby. They're not going to have business meetings in the conference rooms. You know, there might be a bride that's changing her clothes because we have private bathrooms in those rooms. But again, that's part of the group that's in the exhibit or in the event center space. We're not going to have the educational wing occupied at the same time something's going on upstairs. So I really think the maximum occupancy by the fire department is the wrong number to be looking at for parking. I don't know what that number should be, but it's, I mean, the lobby, our event space isn't counted. You know, our all steam ahead, there's an occupancy there. That's not added to it. So what percentage of the lobby goes with our exhibit space, and what percentage of our lobby should be dedicated to the event space? So we are a museum with event capabilities. We are not an event center. Our board is focused on the summer being boat rides, money-making activities that pay our way through the rest of the year. The rest, the off-season, the fall, the winter, spring, that's when maybe people can afford to use our event space, the open space upstairs. And that's when there's plenty of parking spaces. We've asked the city, you know, on all the private or city slip spaces, there's 100 some of them right in our neighborhood. They have signs that this is for slip space only. To change the signage so that it's just when people have slip privileges, you know, the fall, winter, spring, when nobody has privileges to be in their slip, that we could just add a sign that these are open parking spaces. So that would give us 100 spaces within, as far as I can throw a baseball, 100 more. We have on-street parking. We have, you know, anyway, the part of our plan shows, you know, the 900 and some spaces in town, a few hundred spaces all right in the area. We have ample parking spaces. I think with our plan if there is an event that has a whole bunch of people, I think the parking plan designating the senior center for the additional spaces is more than sufficient, and that would only be if it's in the summer season. Otherwise, there's ample parking spaces all around there.
Well, I would think even if it's off-season, right now with the plan, you still would need to use senior services. So just saying that people could park wherever they want in the off-season, being your parking plan, probably wouldn't be the parking plan.
Well, if you can imagine, we sent this particular thing as part of your packet.
Yeah, I was looking at the dedicated parking for your facility in a parking plan, and I would think open street parking somewhere is not part of a good plan as a business plan. So I would think, if there's going to be some event like a wedding reception for 200, and a December wedding, then it would be the 50 on site and then a shuttle service at senior services.
And I guess I would suggest that the slip parking, which is 116 spaces, all on that same row as our 15 spaces, are unoccupied because they don't have rights to use the slip in that time period. And if it's a matter of funding that the city doesn't want to put the signs out, we'd be happy to add the signs that in the off-season, these are open public parking.
Well, I'm not sure
I
if we.
think off-season is one thing, but how are you addressing peak season for parking? That's what we really need to know.
And well, in off-season, I'm not sure if the city takes care of the parking spaces.
You don't.
They don't.
But
so.
I think it's common sense.
If I could just back, my name is Scott Reinert. I work with the Maritime Museum, and I've been working on this parking plan. So if I could just kind of summarize the way we approach this. So we looked at it from a peak season, okay, that the peak season was where we had to address remote parking. And we defined peak season as being from Memorial Day through Labor Day. And we came up with 3 different scenarios. The first scenario was under 100 people would require 50 parking spots. We have 50 parking spots dedicated for the Maritime Museum. Between 100 and 400 people, what we had proposed was the vacant lot on Black River Street. I understand the concerns as far as an unimproved lot in a residential district. My thought going into that was this would be an occurrence that would happen probably 10 times over the course of the summer. So it wouldn't be for 3 or 4 hours. So it wouldn't be a dedicated parking lot that's used 24/7 throughout the summer. So 10 times the Michigan Maritime Museum was going to pay for use of that property. We thought 10 uses for 3 or 4 hours on a summer night within walking distance of the Maritime Museum would be appropriate. And then over 400, our plan was to use the senior center for a shuttle. Now, I can tell you that the scenario that we anticipate happening in the summertime, with Brian's comment about limited events, is that on a Saturday night in July, there will be a party that wants to reserve the main R.B. Yanis Gallery and Annex Room for a wedding. That capacity per the fire department is 227 people. Combined space, 227. At that time, we doubt very much whether there'd be a business meeting that is taking place on a Saturday night that the conference rooms would be occupied, or there will be people in the gallery atrium down below. So 227, that is if there's no dance table, dance floor, bar, whatever. So you could look at it between 180 and 220 people would be in the facility at any one point in time. So we're looking at a gap on a traditional or a typical summer weekend of probably 50 or so cars, 50 to 70 cars. That's where we anticipated proposing that we would use the vacant lot down Black River Street. We thought it has been improved. For those of you who've seen, it has been improved. That entire area has been lifted up, raised with fill. I understand in the spring there might be some concerns, but in general it has been improved. There's some dry areas. So that was our thinking. The rest of the time, in the off-season timeframes, we are proposing using the vacant marina lot parking spaces that are down the street that Brian mentioned, as well as off-street parking. There is we are zoned a waterfront business like other businesses. On the way the waterfront zoning area is determined is a waterfront business downstream of the Dykeman Bridge. On our side, on the north side, it's basically ourselves and Captain Lou's. On the more to the west, you've got the Idler, you've got Admiral Jackson, a number of other businesses as well. What you may not know is that those businesses have become quite large. In fact, Captain Lou's, I'm not picking on Captain Lou's, this is what I have. These are from the fire department. This is the occupancy level allowed at Captain Lou's. You may not be able to see it. 450 people are allowed at Captain Lou's. For those of us that live too close to Captain Lou's, I would say that they have an event every Friday and Saturday during the summer. And that's a band, that's whatever, and it goes on until 2 a.m. And so as a riverfront business, one of the things that we're struggling with, quite honestly, as I looked at this, is that we are clearly being held to a different standard. A similar waterfront property right next to us has 0 parking. Captain Lou's has 0 parking. Captain Lou's also, again, I'm not singling them out, is not abiding by federal ADA compliance for disability with handicap parking spaces. They are not required to have that per the city, obviously. So we're trying to understand, what I'm trying to understand is how other businesses, waterfront businesses, similar to ours, are not being held to the same standard. And so, Clark, to your question, yes, we are saying that off-street parking is a parking plan because it is a parking plan for Captain Lou's, so it is our parking plan. In the summertime, when we're in the peak summer season, we will provide the remote shuttle. There are more than 200 spaces. I use that number. There are literally 400 spaces at the senior center. So they have more than enough. The senior center staff has been overwhelmingly cooperative and supportive of us, and they said, hey, whatever you need, you can provide that. So we're willing to say that in the summer season, you know, when the peak summer season, when parking is at a premium, over that level, over that 400 level, we'll provide that senior services lot. So unless there's a legal reason why we should be treated differently than Captain Lou's or any other riverfront businesses who can have 450, the museum, 98% of the time, the museum will never have 450 people at the same time on the museum campus. We will never be what Captain Lou's is on every Friday and Saturday night. So we're struggling to understand how this is different. And so I'd appreciate any counsel. We'd appreciate any counsel. We have proceeded in good faith trying to come up with a plan that makes sense. We think we've got it. Our proposal now is basically if again, I still feel the vacant lot on Black River Street, it could be an appropriate solution. If it was capped at a limited number for a limited number of hours, I don't think that would be setting a precedent that's not aligned with the vision of the Planning Commission. So if that was something that would factor into the plan, I think that would be a great plan, and then we have senior services on top. So that was our thinking going into it, and we're just trying to be fair and consistent and come up with a good plan that works for everybody. So.
And so are we. And probably one thing I'd address is nobody on this planning commission was here when Captain Lou's was approved, right? And probably the second thing is Jensen's Fishery really wasn't changed. They added a deck in the back where you guys tore down a building and rebuilt, and we're stuck with the ordinances we have, trying to figure out how to apply them fairly.
What I would
and let me add, this one particular piece of property in the R1 area, you're asking us to approve something I don't think we can, and you heard the attorney. That's too far of a stretch unless it was to be rezoned. So that's what we're trying to work through right now.
Okay, no, I get that. It clearly says per section 1401, it says that any new principal use or any expanded principal use requiring more than 10 parking spaces, which Captain Lou's, I can tell you that for a fact, they have done that multiple times over the last 5 or so years. So I'd look forward to any planning commission documents where the planning commission had approved. And
And I would also add, the city, time and again, when I was on city council, I think we've dealt very fairly and consistently with the Maritime Museum in a wide variety of matters. And so
No,
I don't think we're giving you an unfair shake. We haven't finished discussing this.
no, nobody's saying that. We just want to be treated consistently with the rest of the community and the rest of the businesses. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the issue that we also have to
Don't go
consider
away.
is, well,
Don't go
how we,
away, staying right there.
how we do treat you has to be how we treat everyone in the community. So if someone wants a conference center downtown, they get the same options that you got. If a festival decides they need extra parking and there's a vacant lot in one of our neighborhoods, yeah, why not? Just park your cars there for the weekend. I mean, we have to consider more than just your situation. What we establish becomes the city default position. And the other thing I'd like you to consider as you try and understand our thinking, you talk consistently about you being a waterfront business. The previous speaker said, no, we're a museum. Our choice would not have been get into event centers. That wasn't our predominant choice. And I struggle with understanding how an event center furthers the mission of the Maritime Museum.
Well, I can speak very
Well,
clearly.
I'm guessing that it's revenue.
Well, it's revenue that will allow the museum, this is a nonprofit, right? So every dollar that's raised goes back into the museum. So there are two main things. Number one, we keep prices down for everybody that comes in that can enter the museum, take boat rides, whatever. And the second thing is what Brian mentioned. If we can take that money from an event center and we can get a Titanic exhibit in the upper floor for 3 months from February to April, that will be huge for this community and generate. So that's the purpose of an event center. It's to generate money to plow back into the museum to increase the experience for the guests.
No one here on this board, I think I can speak for all of us, doubts the goodwill and how fortunate we are to have the Maritime Museum. That's not the issue we're struggling with. The issue we're struggling with is we have to treat you as a conference center business, not a museum, in making this decision. We have to make a decision based on if someone else wanted to build a conference center in town, what are the standards we would hold them to for parking? Would they be the same? If they wanted to take the top of Huntington Bank that sits pretty empty and say, you know what, this would be a great place for a wedding hall, then we would have to use the same standard in determining their parking. So it's not an issue about whether we doubt your mission, whether we doubt your, we're grateful.
No, you just, I was answering your question about why you would have an event center at the museum. I was trying to answer that question for you.
I understand, and I'm trying to make clear to you is what it does is creates a dichotomy here in decision-making. We have to make a decision what's best, what serves your purpose and mission, but we also have to do it in a way that's consistent with how we would treat any other business, a conference center, just as you're making the argument for Captain Lou's. My solution to Captain Lou's is get out there and enforce it. You know, not to say, oh, geez, you know, I saw 2 people riding through town without seatbelts on. That must be the new norm. I mean, that's not the way to approach that either. I get your reasoning for bringing up that argument, and I couldn't agree with you more. But the solution isn't just to create more Captain Lou's. The solution is to come up with a fair and consistent parking plan for anyone that wants to get into the event center business.
And I would argue a parking plan that you knew in October of 2019 you had to come up with, right? And so how many people did you have there last Saturday at Rock the Boat, that event?
300.
So.
Well, that was not a private, that was a museum event, just like the Fish Boil is, just like those we've always done. Those events have always been held in the museum without additional parking, just like the Art Craft Fair that's going to happen this weekend, no additional parking. So we've done numerous events over the years with no additional parking. The Fish Boil typically handles 600 people, and there's no dedicated parking. We've done that for 15, 20 years.
Yeah, but your situation has changed now. I mean, that is still considered an event, correct? And prior to hosting the first event, you guys were supposed to have this whole thing submitted.
The way that we have interpreted this all along is a privately funded, rented out space. We didn't rent this space out for the Rock the Boat. This was a fundraiser for the museum. So, yeah, we looked at it totally differently.
Okay, I argue about splitting hairs a little, but either way, y'all knew this had to be submitted and done. So I'm sensing a little anger from you about, being held to a different standard and this and that, and we're not. We're not doing anything that we didn't tell you in October of 2019 you were going to have to do for this entire board to look at and rip apart or endorse, one of the two. So I don't want you to be upset with us. This is what you knew was coming. Now we're talking about it.
Okay, I appreciate your point of view. I respectfully disagree, but
It's okay.
I do hope you understand one thing, though, that we are handcuffed. We can't do anything about that lot on Black River. This panel is not empowered to change that. It doesn't fit zoning ordinance. It's not allowed.
Well, Kelly, by ordinance, we're showing it, there's 800 basically occupancy rate, and that divided by 2 is 400 parking spaces needed, correct?
That's how the zoning ordinance treats event centers, is based on that maximum occupancy number.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we have those 400 minus, what is it, 15 that city
No,
council?
no, they got 50 on site.
And 15 with the on-street parking.
Right.
And.
I think that's how they come up with their 50.
50 total. There's 35 in front of the building and 15 on.
And 15, that's how they get the 50,
total.
and they're all signed that way.
That's all that's in front of the buildings, 35?
Yes.
Oh, I thought there were more.
50 total, that's what we've been using all along, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So that's 350 spaces needed off-site. And senior center, what'd they say, 250? 200?
200 at least. 200, they had
So
that. They
we're
could probably
short-
go with more. They have to do that agreement with.
So hang on a second. So then we're short 150. So the question is whether that 150 is required or if you'll grant a variance for that. That's the question before this commission. Or required.
My question is, can we grant a variance as this body? And the second issue I believe they brought up that I think has merit is we may want to ask staff to revisit the occupancy, the number that they came up with, the 800 number. I'm hearing from them that they think that number is unfounded.
I mean, they can agree to say we're not going to have a third-party event. So I think that's what they're talking about is, my kids.
No, if you
kids-
add up, yeah, so we were proceeding down a different route, and Kelly indicated that the planning commission was going to be looking at a full occupancy. There will never be a situation that will be 800 people in the Maritime Heritage Center at one time. However, you all have asked a plan to accommodate for that, but that is not operational the way it would work.
Yes, but I heard your board member, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but Brian. I heard Brian make a really good point, that he suspects that the occupancy was done counting some places that people will never occupy.
Well-
So whether that base number is correct, maybe the base number is off by 150, now you only require 650.
No, those numbers were done by Keith at the fire department.
I know.
He came and physically did a search or a inspection at the site and said, for each one of the rooms, what's the maximum occupancy? That doesn't mean that there's going to be, every room is occupied at the same time.
I get it, I get what you're saying. I'm suggesting that maybe Keith could be wrong too. All right.
Well, but.
See, my issue.
So you're happy with us working with 800 as the base number?
No, I'm just saying that I trust that Keith is using the same standards for us as he does for Captain Lou's.
All right.
Right?
Well-
So he's using that same standard based upon square footage.
I'm fine.
Yeah,
Not just you
I
and
don't know where
Captain
that's
Lou's.
going.
It's for
That's my issue.
Business. That's his job. That's what he does, right?
That's my issue. It's not Keith's job to go into a room and say what it's being used for.
It is absolutely his.
But what I'm saying is
Hang on, here's the question.
No.
If the occupancy's wrong, then you wouldn't object to it being changed.
Right.
What we're saying is the fire department chief did the occupancy correct per the code
Square
and
footage.
ordinance and fire apparatus and all of that.
But in order to
And
require.
And we're saying we sized all our air and ventilation equipment, I mean, we have a multi-use building. What I'm saying is you're not gonna have a separate 200 people in the lobby at the same time you have a group going on upstairs. These people that are in the lobby are going upstairs. So I'm saying the zoning planning person here in your city should not use the fire department maximum capacity standards for each room. I think there's some judgment that is made to say, you know what, the main room can hold this many, and say it's only 230, you know? And if we're saying it's 400 or 500, I think there's some reasonable estimation that's not the maximum fire occupancy.
Brad, can you
standard.
tell me how occupancy is figured?
I don't know.
Brad, not you. That Brad.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
The way that we calculate off-street parking is two or more, or here we go.
I was asking for occupancy, like, it's
Building
the same for
occupancy.
everybody, right?
No, yeah, when it's an occupancy load, I mean, we either, depending on which category, according to our little table, and here it is, it's either calculated by usable square footage or whatever the fire chief says.
Okay. But
The
it's,
fire chief, as far as I know, is just following the state of Michigan fire code.
okay.
So if
that's what I thought.
occupancy was reduced, the parking requirement would be reduced. That was my point. Yeah,
Right.
I get it.
And-
I didn't
and
feel
maybe-
comfortable as a zoning administrator making that determination. They've got several different event rooms and event spaces, and I felt that was a decision for the planning commission to make.
And at the same time, the organization may say, we're probably never going to have, you know, we'll keep it at 500 and under. And they may make that decision, and then they can be asking for that. We just happen to be putting 800 on them, but if they were to come forward and say, our maximum capacity for an event, so if someone comes with a wedding and says, I want 600 people, you may say, can't handle 600. We can handle 500. And, oh, lo and behold, they've got parking for 500 with 50 on site and 200 at senior services. And then we can go forward.
I'm hesitant to say, I would, like, okay, we'll change the occupancy permit so you meet the parking. That seems a little backwards to me, when you can just say, hey, go find another school, or go find something else that you can go into contract with.
because-
You may never use it. Who cares? It's going to cost you nothing but an agreement, and you've met the standards of the zoning. But you know that internally, you're only going to have 200 people max. You're not going to do that as a responsible board. But to be I think you need to go find some
Yeah,
more
so
parking
if I
spots.
could just maybe try to circle it back. So I fully understand and respect the vacant lot proposal. We thought it was a reasonable thing, but I understand you're saying that that's not something that the committee can do. So I think that the outstanding issue that we have is understanding how we deal with, between 100 and 200, 300 people, whatever, and whether or not off-street parking is going to be allowed both during the peak season as well as the off-season, knowing that we've got 120 marina slips available from October 15th through April 15th. Clearly, we think that senior services is a good solution. We've talked to Van Buren Transit. They're accommodating, so the shuttle piece of it is not an issue at all. And the number of parking spaces that can be accommodated at the senior services is not an issue at all. So what we're just trying to understand is, and I think we all agree that we've got 50 spots that can accommodate up to 100, so that's not an issue at all. And with all, again, I apologize, the plan that we came up with, I didn't think there was going to be an issue with a vacant lot. I understand that now. I thought that was a perfect solution because it was walking distance and it wasn't. So, my bad for, going down that route. So I think that's kind of the interim was what we're looking for some guidance on is that if we have over 100 but less than, say, 300, is off-street parking going to be allowed, during those scenarios? And then at what point does the commission asked us to use the remote shuttle services at the senior center.
And I appreciate your, what you're saying. I guess in simplest terms to me, what I've simply heard and what we've gone through is you just lost 150 spaces. You got to go find 150 spaces.
The senior center has 450 spaces.
So if you get there, if you can come back with an agreement for them that says you can have 350 of their spots versus 200 that they've agreed to now, then we got a different, but we would also want to see a plan that says how you're going to shuttle those people, because, you know, we've watched the shuttle from the high school over the years and how well that's worked. And if you're going to try and get 300 people to a wedding, shuttling them.
No, we had, the Maritime Museum, 3 or 4 years ago, we hosted the Draken boat. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, absolutely.
We had 10,000 people that visited that exhibit, and we successfully parked people at the high school, moved them down and back, and we partnered with the craft fair and stuff, so it worked out beautifully. So
I'm just suggesting we might want to see the plan that you're going to do that.
The senior center number, again, if I could just clarify, the senior center number was purely my number to say between 400 and 800, that's 200 spaces. I went to Diane at the senior center and I said, could I get 200 spaces? She said, absolutely. I have no doubt that I went back to her and said, could we get 350? Because those, you know, as we know, if you've been to the senior center, that's mostly daytime activity and stuff. So the lot is pretty much empty in the evenings, you know, when we'd have an event or whatever. So I don't think there would be any concern at all with increasing that number at the senior center. So.
Are we requiring them, and this to staff, are we requiring them to have this parking for what Keith seems to think their occupancy is? Or can we ask them what they think their largest event they're going to be putting on, these third-party events where someone's renting out the space, and we go at it from that perspective? Seems way easier than having to come up with 800. We're like pushing 800 on them.
But then aren't we asking them that they have to come up with the occupancy limit on their own, saying we are only going to.
Yes, they're going to agree to with the city only to host these third parties. I mean, this is when someone comes and does a wedding.
Right.
You know, they've been doing. You know, I don't look at a fish boil the same way.
Oh no, I don't.
That's something they've always done. People come and go and walk, you know, from their homes to do that. This is Bob and Sally come to them from Chicago and they want to put on a wedding reception. We're renting your space. And you're like, here's our contract. And by the way, here's our parking plan.
Yeah.
And you may say, what's your maximum? And we all agree to that.
Right. So I think, you know, to try to address your question, Clark, so again, if somebody rented the main space that we have, the nice indoor space, again, 227 is the maximum occupancy with tables and chairs. So say 200 if they have a dance floor or whatever. If somebody else came to us and say, we want to do another 200-person wedding on site, the only place we could do that right now is on the grass or something like that. There's no other spaces that could accommodate those numbers. So I would say, you know, I would feel comfortable saying, and from an operational standpoint, again, if you got 2 big weddings going on at the same time, I mean, so I'd say, you know, 400 people, 500 people would be the maximum that we would operationally feel comfortable having at any one point in time, you know, so it's clearly not 800. There'd never be occasion where we have 800.
So
are we looking at the number operationally? Are we looking at what has been assigned by the fire chief?
Yeah.
Because if we're trying to skew this, if we're going to start skewing this, then we're going to be bouncing back and forth. Then we're not going to have anything.
If I could maybe,
I'm not
sorry.
finished.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so then we're not going to have anything that's concrete. So I think that our board is going to have to determine whether or not we're going to look at an operational number or whether we're going to look at an occupancy number. That there is what I see in my mind has to happen. And that's not anything that you can tell us. That's something that we're going to have to make a decision on. And then once we make that decision, whether it's going to be an operation number or whether it's going to be an occupancy number, once you have that, then we can sort of put a plan together in place. But now we're bouncing back and forth between this number and that number, and it's 10 minutes to 10.
In with occupancy, that's the only thing that's an official document, okay? And then to speak to both you and Clark, take this into consideration. If we were talking about an arboretum,
Excuse
how
me.
many parking spaces would you need?
I'm going to simplify.
And I say, hang on, hang on.
No,
This is, I'm the chair, and I'm talking with the commission right now, okay? Thank you. So my point is, you have an indoor facility, and you also have outdoor, right? So the question to ask yourself would be, is that number too large, considering there's outdoor facility as well? Or do you ratchet it back? So just food for thought.
I look at it as exactly like, this is the number of people we feel like we can handle events on site. We can get more people in here, but we're not going to do an event greater than 500 people. Then that's the parking plan we put together.
Well, and I'm also like, can we change the occupancy, first of all? I don't think we can do that. I think we're stuck with what we get, right?
This is a site plan condition. So let's go back to 2019. In 2019, my memory is the Maritime Museum took the position that they didn't have to provide any parking, any additional parking, because it was a waterfront business. This planning commission was not comfortable with that interpretation, and the conditions that got put into the final approval was basically a compromise between those two positions. We allowed them to build the site without providing additional parking, but put these three conditions into the list of conditions to address the parking. And it doesn't specifically tie the parking plan to the official occupancy number. It talks about sufficiency of parking for the proposed events. So I think you do have the flexibility to set a maximum event number that's different than the technical fire code number, if that's what the planning commission wants to do.
And I think that would fit in their business plan and fit in the agreement and the spirit of going together.
But she does have an answer.
One thing I would add that's maybe been being missed in this discussion is that the conditions specifically say any event with more than 50 guests has to provide shuttling, so that if they want to deviate from that, they'd have to modify the original conditions of the site plan.
Well, and they've got 50 on-site spaces,
Right.
so I
So
would think
the
we could
difference
change
was-
that to 100.
The difference was, I think, Nick, was that when the current lease agreement situation was determined, those 35 additional spots were dedicated for the Maritime Museum. So we picked up, so that 50 number is now 100, basically.
That agreement was in place at the time of this approval, so that hasn't changed in the interim.
Well, we've got 50 parking spaces, is what I'd say. So it says 50 people, but we have room for 100 people per the 2-to-1 ratio. So that's changed. I don't know.
I don't believe it's changed. I think that was discussed at the time, and that's what the planning commission determined.
So over 50 people, even though we had 50 parking spaces?
Correct. That's what's in the motion.
Why would that?
Okay, hang on.
We can make it.
You wanted to speak
Yeah,
to
to
us.
simplify this, we know the
Put
seniors.
the mic- Use the microphone.
Senior Service has.
State your name, please.
Andrea Olson. The Senior Service has 400 parking spots. We can easily go back to them and ask for an agreement, and then you would be satisfied with your 800 occupancy. We would have this settled. Would you be in agreement with that? We'd have 100 on, or 50 on site, 400.
Absolutely.
Shuttle over 100 year-round?
For events that we need it, only per event that we need it. Is
Yeah.
that, is that satisfactory?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I'd say is, we've got 116 parking spaces that we know are empty between October 15th.
I understand that, Scott,
And
but
so-
we keep telling you, we're looking at peak season, not off-season. Off-season, we can do a lot with you. It's peak season.
Okay, so that's all we're talking about. Just Clark, everybody else, that's all we're talking about is peak season.
This is what Chairman brought up now, then we have to look at the rest of it.
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's not
That's still,
necessarily.
we haven't
the
dealt with that
understanding.
yet, but he's dealing with peak season right now.
Peak season.
Okay, so we will get you the or the signed agreement.
Okay,
from
so peak season, we're in agreement over 100? That we're going to provide a shuttle from Senior Services.
Right, 2-1 ratio. Our lawyer said 50.
400 minus 50 is 350.
50, right?
350.
We originally said 2015.
That's what they've got in agreement right now.
For 200. They've got an agreement
Said
for
it again.
200.
No.
For 200, correct, which is 400 people.
It needs to be 350.
Yeah, I can have that by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
That's what he said.
Pretty
He's got it.
confident.
He's
Yeah, You're
go
basically
and get
just
that.
replacing the 150 we were going to put on.
Right.
Yeah.
We've taken
Simple.
that off the plate. We're not going to use that vacant lot.
Go find us 150
That irritates
spaces.
the crap out of me.
So,
And
I'm
then-
sorry, Tim, so yeah, so if we can just agree that peak season, Memorial Day to Labor Day, we'll provide a shuttle to senior services, they'll agree to give us up to, what did we say, I'm sorry, 200 spots.
350.
Yeah, yeah, so,
And then we can talk about, because that's more with what George can do with city council, is the marina parking, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that would have to go through city council or not.
Well, what they're
the
requesting though is
commission.
a sign that says museum off-season.
no, we're just saying, it's, right now the sign says marina patrons only. What we'd like to have is that sign that says marina patrons only, April 15th to October 15th.
That has nothing to do with our parking plan.
Right,
Just, okay.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
All right, thank you. And again, I apologize if I came across as confrontational. I'm not trying, I'm just trying to, been working hard to try to come up with a win-win here, so I apologize. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's public parking. Okay. No, well, no, for the events, they still need the bus, right?
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Come
And it's not very
December,
well cleared, like, you know.
In
come
December.
December,
out.
I think.
It's not a good safety thing
Right.
either. I mean, I
so
walked
come
through there.
December, they can do whatever. They don't have to provide any parking.
Let's talk about that later.
Next
You just
meeting.
agreed to that. There is no parking plan in December.
We didn't agree to anything yet.
It's the-
Right.
We didn't even agree to.
They
it.
want-
Just
Voted
agreed.
on
No,
anything. We
that
haven't voted
does-
on anything, honestly.
Clark,
We haven't
let me
agreed to a
straighten that
single-
one out right away.
We played, let's make a
They
deal,
wanted to
but we
know
have
if
not
that
agreed.
parking would be available to them. So what could happen at that point is there's, how many slips are over there that get parking? 60? I don't know, whatever it is, gets subtracted from the 350 at that point. They're still gonna need off-site parking. They just opens up some additional parking.
Not really,
So,
well, no.
so the off-season parking is still, they will still need to have bus service out to senior services if they can't get access to those additional spaces. Because I don't know,
Yeah.
like, and maybe staff would know, in the middle of the winter, do we clear off all of those spaces in the marina when it
The answer is
snows?
no. Melinda and I
No.
walk there all the time. The answer is no.
So those would be unusable spaces.
No.
Yeah.
In a
I just
snowstorm,
think
they
it
would be
shuttle it,
unusable.
I think
you
the
know?
question
But the
is
shuttle is a
whether
good
the
answer.
museum can use those in the off-season, and it's not just reserved for the marina, right?
Right.
Oh. But I don't think you can count them in a plan. I think they're there if you need.
They're
you wanna
there if
use
you
them.
need
I
them
don't
like
think they
any
count as an
public
official
parking.
plan. Yeah,
Okay.
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
But they've got it
Well,
covered
When
with
it, but if they're not available,
Then they're not available.
okay.
You're saying because there's snow on them,
Yeah, if there's snow covered, they're unavailable.
I guess, yeah.
So they'd have to run out and either hire someone to clear those for their event or just continue to shuttle people out. So let's say in December, they have an event for 400 people and they need,
Or they go to city council and say, will you please plow those spaces?
please plow those
for us?"
spaces for us. Okay.
Yeah.
So that number can be subtracted from the senior services number. But if they have an event larger than the marina spaces,
Why are we, I don't know why you're trying to subtract them and let them do the work, let city council decide. Our job is to get them to the 800 people parking spots.
They're gonna have
and
a
then-
year-long contract.
Yeah.
Or agreement with senior services or whoever, I assume it's gonna be senior services, but they're gonna have they have to have a yearly contract. And that's another thing we're gonna have to discuss, is part of this approval will probably have to be conditional on that contract being renewed annually. Because the year it isn't, senior service says, hey, we're really busy now, we don't have enough, then what? They're gonna have to find another off-site location.
So it all has to
So
be,
that'll have to be a condition that's also.
so it all has to be off-street parking, and we consider the marina parking off-season to be off-street, but
Yeah.
we've always got to be off-street, so there's no on-street parking as part of their plan.
As part of the plan.
Okay.
It sounds like the change that we've made, in my mind, is the plan consists of two separate seasons. I mean, there is a peak season plan and there is an off-season plan. It's all part of the same parking plan, but different standards and different solutions are available at different times of the year, so.
Right.
We recognize that in what we put together.
Okay, I think we beat this one enough, right? Are you guys good? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. We'll entertain this one again next month. So,
Can we get
now
some
let me,
clarification?
I just want to ask you, are you having any events coming up before our next meeting? That are non-museum, that are more event-related?
Actually, yeah.
Okay, come up and tell us about that if you would, so we can figure that out real quick.
Might be close to it, but yes, we're hosting the annual.
This is Patty.
Everybody. We're hosting the annual chamber, annual dinner meeting. So they're very excited about it. We're doing it as a community service. We're not charging anything for it. But typically for that event, they're over 200 for sure, probably 250.
Mm-hmm,
So
okay.
it's the end of October.
Oh, that's,
Okay,
we'll have the meeting before then. We're at the beginning of October.
Yeah, everything else that we've had so far is well under any of those numbers. They've been able to park in the parking lot, so.
Okay,
And I'm very proud. We've had, in 18 days from the time we opened, over 5,000 visitors to the museum.
Wow.
So
That's good.
it's a museum first, it really is. We're not an event center.
I can't.
And we can approve the plan, we don't have to send it anywhere. No, I want to make sure, you know.
Actually, you're right, it doesn't go to council, does it?
It doesn't go to council. We can approve it here to make
Yeah.
it easier. Okay. All right.
Which is interesting, but,
It's a very detailed site plan condition.
yeah,
The most detailed site plan condition I've ever seen. But
All right.
okay.
So
Yes.
please for me again, during the peak season, we have the senior center shuttle plan, but what's happening during December?
Well, nothing, really. Alls we're just saying is in December, they can use those spaces, they're not reserved for the marina, because nobody has a boat in.
Yes, but we still have the shuttle plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Still have the shuttle plan.
Shuttle plan.
And we may only just
Shuttle
require
plan.
that during an event, the spaces are cleaned. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but
Right.
otherwise, it's not a space.
I mean, isn't this shuttle plan basically for overflow? Whatever you don't have right there.
Correct.
That goes to senior services.
Right.
So whether that's in January or July, it may be 25 spaces or it may be 75 spaces. But the agreement is the agreement that they will be able to get overflow parking at senior services as needed. Correct?
It backs up 100.
I think that's all that they're really wanting. Correct?
What we're saying is it's,
I mean,
staff has it because in the off months, they have another 60 spaces.
I get that. The amount of spaces available right there is not the issue. The issue is, do they have a plan in place to handle the overflow of parking that happens if they don't have enough on site, which is senior
It
service.
sounds like we've got a plan. It's
Very
going to be
good.
put together, and it's got both seasonal stuff to it.
You got it.
I'm sure we can put, you can
The only
put
thing
something
that
together.
I'd respectfully like to add, though, is there are a ton of, in December, Black River Street from Dykeman up to Wells, there's another 80 spots
that are totally vacant in December. There's another 100 spots along Park Street that are totally empty.
But
And
those are
so-
on-street parking.
What's that? On-street parking, there's a
That's
ton of those.
off-street parking is what we're talking about.
Right,
Which would be
right.
different, so we
Well,
can't include those.
So you're saying that in December or January, that all those open public parking spots, we can't include those as being available?
No, it's the spots on your parking lot and the parking lot spots in the marina. Yes, we're not including, that's on-street parking.
Right, right.
It has to be off-street parking.
Okay, and why is that?
I think it's always been off-street parking for businesses.
So like Captain Lou's, right?
Yeah, you can have fun with that, but no.
Oh, yeah, I mean, basically. So, I mean, it doesn't pass the common sense test to me that we're going to have when there's 50.
The only off-street or the street parking with the marina, the reason we can consider that is because it's already reserved during the peak season.
Right.
When the boats come out, it's not reserved anymore.
Right.
So that's not like any other parking space in town. That's used for city enterprise fund.
Yeah,
Right.
but again, I understand that, but from a practical standpoint, with those of us that live here, we know that December, January, February, there are hundreds of parking spaces within a 10-minute walk of the Maritime Museum. So we're not going to be allowed to use those. We're going to require a shuttle to go out to the senior services instead. I'm just trying to
Yes,
understand.
yes, it's an off-street.
And so why is that?
It's a business. That's what we need the business to do. And it's like every other, that's part of the parking plan. That off-season, all of a sudden you just agreed to that. That's the off-street parking. And
No,
it's going to
but
be a
I'm
shuttle
saying,
out there.
So a craft fair in August, it's going to happen this coming weekend. They're not allowed to use the public spaces that are available around. So I'm trying to understand consistency.
That's apples and oranges.
How so?
One's a public part that's being utilized. You've built a business that has a business plan to host events that you have third parties come in to utilize, and that's the difference. And you know that. That's the difference.
Now, I'm struggling because I know even today, go down Quaker Street right now, September, there are a ton of empty parking spaces.
Fortunately, you're going to submit the parking plan, and we've got a plan for you. The shuttle and the spaces, and then off the spaces.
Okay,
Andrew,
well,
let's
we'll see.
just work with
We'll start with that. We'll start with that and see.
And then,
But,
there
there may be further
Keep in the
follow-up.
back of your mind, was the building bigger than could normally be built?
The building bigger than
Yeah,
could
were there
normally be built.
setbacks that were varianced?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, so.
Okay, very good. So you'll come back next month with the complete parking plan is outlined in what, 2019? Yeah, okay, very good. All right. So, public comment. Citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to take public comment on the museum?
Oh, yeah, we
item?
can. Does anybody in the audience wish to speak on the Maritime Museum? No? Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on items that were not on this agenda? No? Next up, commission or staff comments.
I have none tonight, thank you all.
All right. Brad, anything?
Yeah, short and sweet.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
How about you, Luke? Anything to add?
Come on, Luke.
I have 2 more hours of work to do after this.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, who wants to go first tonight? That'll be the rotation.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I was going to have a whole speech tonight, and I'm skipping it because it's so late. So
Okay.
there we go.
Just want to thank the staff for your hard work, appreciate it. It's a long agenda, and you guys did a really good job. I appreciate you guys.
Going this way?
Yep.
Again, always thank you, staff. Kelly has brought up as a theme, which I think is entirely appropriate, is training of and increasing our knowledge, and it's wonderful, and I think we should pursue it. One resource I want to make sure we're taking advantage of, I hope you all got this month. This is one of the best editions that we've had in a year.
Yep.
It's all about tourism economies and planning for it, and there's some pretty eye-opening stuff in there. So I encourage you to read it.
That's the one to read.
Yep.
Definitely.
No comments.
Nothing to add except sympathy to.
Just that, Larry, I think that tool you were talking about earlier kept running through my mind. Stray cat strut.
Okay.
That's it. We kept on the stray cat strut. That's it. That's all I got.
And I just want to say thank you, Kelly, for helping me today and walking me through all of the components and the shifting components of that. I really do appreciate it.
Thank her for sending you 164 pages of.
Thank you for that, too.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave you with this. I was thinking about where we were talking about parking for the peak season, right? And I read an article recently about Holland, not Holland, Michigan, but Holland, Netherlands, where they designed their dike systems to withstand the 10,000-year flood. And I find that interesting because it seems like our Army Corps engineer and everything we deal with in the United States is the 100-year flood. So no wonder everything's always flooding out down in the south, is because they're wasting money by not designing something that'll hold up to the elements. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting planning concept, is if you're going to design a dike or a dam, design it for the 10,000-year flood, not the 100.
Yes, sir.
And same thing with peak season parking, design it for the maximum, right?
Same thing for land use.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's it then.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and
Third.
supported to adjourn. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, meeting's
Anyone
adjourned.
says opposed, I'm coming at you.
Tim, thank you.
This was the longest meeting we've had since I've been chair.
Yep.
Tim, thank you. That was masterly. You did great.